Let's just do it again. This is how we do it. All right. Let me turn on the fan. Turn off the fan at least. I got some work to do here. I thought I'd go live, see who wants to come up and have a nice, respectful discussion with a decent religious person. Yeah, I claim to be decent. At least not with jerky people. I'm mean to jerky people. Second. I gotta charge my phone. Beautiful. That's right, guys. Like the show. I was thinking about how much time I waste going on other people's lives. I mean, I hop in there to sort of listen, get a vibe. It's typically a Jewish person misrepresenting Judaism, right? I would say 9 out of 10 times. Well, really, in TikTok so far, it's been 10 out of 10 times. The person giving their opinion on Judaism knows nothing about the topic, knows nothing about the religion, unfortunately. So I'll come in and I'll sort of throw a few corrections here and there, and then people hate me for it. It's true. Correct the fool. All right. Now, the only reason I have to let you go is because I don't want this this language to get me kicked off. Let's see. You know what? There's something I want to speak to my friend Reuven about. Welcome, Reuven.
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi.
Aleichem shalom. You know, so it's made it pretty popular that it's not the first time, but people are saying, well, even Reuven disagrees with you, right? And I'm not really sure what you disagree with me on.
I disagree with you on your view of Islam.
So my view of Islam is that it's an ethical belief system, that it's an alternative to Judaism. I mean, assuming someone cannot become Jewish. However, I think that Judaism is better than Islam.
I'm not disagreeing on that notion, but
Okay.
I disagree with you that it's a form of avodah zarah, and from that perspective, and that you put Christianity as a higher.
Oh, but that's not an issue with Islam. Here, listen. I'm pretty sure you agree with my interpretation of avodah zarah when I say that. You know that I clearly don't believe. Yeah.
I'm saying I understand your interpretation, but
Okay.
It's the perception that you put out that people don't understand what you mean by that.
Oh, so you don't disagree with my ideas, you disagree with the approach.
Yes.
Okay, because they're basically saying that you're agreeing that a Muslim could criticize the Torah as much as they want, like if we can't explain it from the actual words of the Torah, but whenever they say put the Quran to the challenge, they're allowed to bring any other commentary to in some way auto-correct the errors in their text.
Oh, no. What I mean is, like, when we critique a belief system or religion, you have to do it in the way that people believe it, right? So I can't, like, if I'm going to come and critique Judaism from Karaite perspective, if I don't believe, the majority of Jews are Karaites, then it's not a fair critique, right? So in Islam, they're not Quranists. They have Quran and Hadith. So then we should, if you're going to critique him, you should accept that that is the way the belief system works and critique it as the whole concept and not as a Quran-only concept, right?
No, okay.
Just be fair to their belief.
So that is where I disagree, because they typically come on this show and every show and they make the claim that because there are errors in the Torah, errors in what Jews call Tanakh, that this in some way shows that Islam is better. They're not asking what Jews believe. They're saying your Torah has errors that the Torah itself cannot satisfy. Then, using these same scales, we'll say that, well, what's the closest thing that you have to the Torah? It's the Quran. theology aside, it's the main book, apart from commentary, because we also have commentaries that many Jews take literally as an extension to the Torah, but that cannot enter the conversation. So if someone's going to critique your religion in terms of your source material, they're not going to deny that their source material is the Quran. They've decided to include later texts, and it's not all hadiths. They've chosen which hadiths they want to consider as divine or actually spoken by the Prophet, because it's the only ones that give a response to the errors that appear in the Quran. So if you're using equal scales, it has to be source material versus source material, not source material versus any other later text that they want to include alongside the Quran that in some way responds to all the holes in the Quran. So these debates here are not theological debates. I'm not debating as a Jewish person, which is why I don't bring down rabbinical ideas when I'm dialoguing with a Muslim. I'm trying to explain the Torah in the clearest way possible. And if I can't do it with the Torah alone, I'll say that from the outset, you could declare that an inconsistency. You can declare it because you don't believe in the Torah, right? I'm speaking to a Muslim here. And so why would I take into consideration every attempt they made to patch up all the holes in the Quran, right? To in some way say that, yes, Islam is purer than Judaism, right? I mean, Judaism could do the same thing. I could write a book that could wash away every inconsistency in the Torah. But does that mean that I could say that the Torah is flawless or the Torah is fully logical? Of course not. Because they'll be like, well, you wrote it. You established these ideas later just to make your source material sound better. This is what I'm convinced they did, which I'm not even bringing to the table. I'm just saying that if you're going to attack the Quran or if you're going to attack the Torah, you should be able to attack the Quran from the same perspective. Forget that he's a religious Muslim and forget I'm a religious Jew, right? So that you disagree with?
Okay, so yeah, let me explain why I disagree. I disagree with the approach that why can't you use your materials? Like you say, no, I'm going to argue with them as the Karaite. Why? I mean, you're not proselytizing Karaite Judaism here, right? You're not converting people to Karaite Judaism. So why can't you bring
speaking
Talmud?
to a non-Jewish person who is challenging their claim was that the Torah is inconsistent and it's illogical and it has errors in it. The Torah, not the Talmud, right? It's just like they expect me to respond with the Torah itself. If I say, oh, that's fine because the Rambam says this.
I don't know. I've spoken many times with Itachi, with many of them, and whenever they brought questions, and I brought explanations from the oral Torah, from the Talmud, from Mishnah, from wherever, they accepted those explanations. They never argued with me and said, oh, no, this is all fake. You can't use it. You have to argue like Karaite. I've never heard that argument.
That makes absolutely no sense. So they say that the Torah has flaws in it, but when you explain it via the oral law, they'll be like, okay, so I guess it has no flaws in it.
No, they're accepting my explanation and saying, okay, so now you explained it, it makes sense.
Wait. So you're telling me that a Muslim, because they believe in portions of the Torah, are satisfied with what rabbinic literature has to say in the inconsistencies that appear in the Torah? They're satisfied with that?
Yes, they've been satisfied with the answers.
I mean, there's no way that a serious person, this is why I'm not satisfied when I'm trying to show the inconsistencies in the Quran and they bring up some other book. How does that excuse the errors in the Quran? It doesn't. See, this is why. I think your whole approach is mistaken and it's making Judaism look bad, because you're giving them this benefit of the doubt. They believe that we corrupted the Torah. Islam teaches that we corrupted the Torah. You're telling me that if in the time of Muhammad, some Jew would have went up to him and says, no, it wasn't corrupted because it's explained away in the Talmud. He would have been like, oh, you know what? That makes perfect sense, right?
I mean, when somebody asks me a question and I give them a good explanation, they accept that explanation, they don't argue it.
Religious Muslims, by definition, believe that our Torah has been corrupted. Right? That we corrupted the Torah. So why would they be satisfied with the rabbinical interpretation? Like, okay, it's no longer corrupted because Rashi said it. You honestly believe this?
Let me explain again. So just because somebody claims it's corrupted, that claim has to be substantiated, right? So when they try to bring the evidence and say, this is the evidence that it's corrupted, and I give them the answer to that evidence and they can't argue with it, they have to accept it. That's how logical argument goes.
No, it doesn't, because they're saying that the Torah was corrupted. The Torah, that the Jews corrupted the Torah all the way from the time of Ezra. And you're
Okay,
suddenly you're
what does
saying
it
that
mean
Muslims are
corrupted?
satisfied as long as you give them a rabbinical response?
First of all, let's. What's corrupted means that the argument is that the text that we have right now is not fully 100% the text that Moses had, right?
No, that's
But
not the
I
argument.
agree with that text, right? Because we don't have that text.
Okay. Hold on, I'm getting phone calls here. Hold on. The argument is that we made it seem like prophets do sin. We made it seem that it was Isaac and not Ishmael that was sacrificed. I mean, it's not us in some way forgetting it. We intentionally corrupted it. This is the Islamic approach, to assume that you're discussing with someone who's convinced of rabbinical authority or respects the fact that we consider the rabbis a big part of our theological system. This is not who you're dialoguing with. The reason Islam exists is because they think your religion is inferior and incomplete. So how could you believe that only because you say Rashi teaches something or the oral law teaches something, that is in some way going to convince them that the Torah is no longer corrupted?
Again, corrupted would means that somebody intentionally went and lied in it, right?
Yeah, they believe that.
I don't think so. Whenever I spoke, they believed that the text is not authentic and it was changed. But they're not claiming that somebody intentionally went and changed it to be opposite of what God says.
They believe that we're.
I mean, it says in Quran that the Torah is true.
Okay, they believe that we are an evil group of people. Okay, that we undermine the Prophet. No, I'm just telling you that the trend in Islam, especially in the Hadiths, is that we undermined the mission of the Prophet. That we lied and we said that we were friendly when we were really just trying to harm them. They're not our friends, and I give them more respect than the average rabbi does. Okay, it doesn't matter if I classify their beliefs as idolaters. I say it's ethical, and if someone doesn't want to become a religious Jew, consider becoming an ethical Muslim. I don't think a rabbi has ever said that. Okay, but I'm not going to deny that if someone's going to accuse us of having a corrupted text, by you saying that the rabbis give us explanations to what you may think is an inconsistency, that's going to in some way get them to realize maybe it's not corrupted.
Okay.
Let's put
it on a fair scale then, all right? Let's say that I'm going to grant you your claim and I'll agree with that. Let's put it on a fair scale. Christianity. Mm-hmm. What's the dogma of Christianity? That everything we believe. No, hold on. I mean, you treat Christians with like fur gloves, right? You give them all the respect and all.
Yep, you're changing. But you're moving the goalposts.
No, I'm not changing.
Let's deal with the first issue.
Let's be fair. If you're saying that their belief is against us, so is Christianity. They call us synagogue of Satan. They say that the law of Moses is curse upon people.
Right.
But you defend.
And that form of Christianity I call idolatry.
But that's all Christianity.
No, I make a distinction between Messianic Jews who believe in the oral law and written law, who identify as Jewish, and then traditional Christians that believe that Jews are a synagogue of Satan.
Okay. That's not what I hear and what I witness. I mean, yeah, I know Courtney's not like that, but 99% of Christians are like that.
Right, so 99% of Christians are idolaters.
Okay, but you don't say that.
I do say it all the time. I said that what makes Christianity idolatry is the fact that they believe that the Torah is done away with. That, according to halakha, that's a form of avodah zarah, right? I think I'm extremely consistent, and I'm very, very pleasant with Muslims and Christians. This is why they like coming on here, because I let them talk. However, I don't let them be intellectually dishonest. If they're going to grade my Bible, my source material, I should be able to grade theirs also, and it should be able to stand on its own. If the Quran says something and doesn't solve that riddle, that problem within the pages of the Quran, you have to acknowledge that without the Hadith, this is considered an inconsistency. I'm not saying according to Islam is an inconsistency, that's their belief, right? But they would have to acknowledge that according to the Quran alone, it's inconsistent, but they won't acknowledge that. They're like, it doesn't matter. The Hadith is part of the Quran. If you're going to validate that statement of faith, then why do you remain Jewish?
That has nothing to do with it. Like, I mean, I don't believe in their prophets and all that stuff. That's a separate thing altogether. I mean, to me, probably the biggest obstacle would be that Jesus, they believe, is the Messiah and prophet, right? I don't believe in Jesus in any way, shape, or form.
You
But
still disagree with me then?
I mean, like I said, it's not like the disagreement is more in the approach.
I'm very friendly towards Muslims, very friendly. However, according to halakha, um, it's pretty, it's set in stone as much as it could be set in stone without a Sanhedrin, that it's questionable and it's most likely idolatry. For sure, we can't declare Christianity idolatry or Islam or idolatry or anything technically idolatry unless there's a Sanhedrin. All we could do is take guesses. According to Jewish history, apart from the Rambam, Islam was always viewed as idolatry. Fine. Do they worship statues? No. Do they worship a moon god? No. All right. However, by the simple fact that they have a different text and they believe that we corrupted our text, and they have laws that are contrary to our laws, means that they're serving God in a different way that He didn't prescribe. So that itself is a weird way of worshiping God. That's what avodah zarah means. That's it. From a non-Jewish perspective, do I think it's idolatry? No. However, when they're telling me that they're a pure monotheist and they're the true religion, they're not saying it from a Muslim perspective. They're saying it from an international perspective. They're saying this is the truth for everybody. So from that perspective, we'll have to say, according to the rules of Judaism, right, that itself doesn't qualify for being God's last ethical outlet for humanity on this planet. That's it. So it's a little more sophisticated that the average person gets lost in doing, but I posted this video because for some reason these Muslims, because they saw you disagree with me, they're saying, look, even a Jewish person says you're wrong. And then they're saying that this girl I dialogued with wiped the floor with me. They obviously didn't listen to the video. I even posted the video up that they thought that this girl was defeating me. When she specifically said, find a hole in the Quran, I find it and she explains it with a hadith. I thought you said the Quran. We believe in the hadith. I don't believe in the hadith. So it's a tactic. It's clearly a tactic, that they're dishonest. Now, if I'm going to take their theological beliefs into consideration when determining their religion as true or false, that's something else, okay? And I don't even know why anyone would do that when trying to grade a belief system if it's worthy enough to join. Why would they do that? No, they would analyze every book alone and then realize oh, interesting. You choose which hadiths you accept and which ones you don't. And clearly the ones you accept are the ones that respond to the inconsistency, because they don't explain the inconsistencies. They'll respond to it and say, oh, you see, we've acknowledged it. Even Muhammad acknowledged it, but they chose that text later on just to have something to respond to. And yes, they were even honest enough to not even include it in the Quran, because you figure we just go in and change the Quran, but it's not logical. It's not logical for someone who's dialoguing religion from an academic perspective to care that these individuals included later texts to in some way auto-correct their earlier texts. And it's silly when Jews do it, and it's silly when Muslims do it. It's silly. There's clearly inconsistencies in the Torah, clearly. However, the average Jew will respond like the average Muslim. Of course there isn't. Why not? Because we have the oral law. But that's not what we said. We said that there's inconsistencies in the Torah alone, right? And if the Jew would keep on saying, we have Rashi, we have the Rambam, I think everyone would say this Jew doesn't get it. But for some reason, the approach is different when I'm challenging a Muslim on this. Why?
One second. My wife is agreeing with you, not with me, by the way. 1 second, sorry.
Спасибо, товарищ.
I think I should just remind her that according to halakha, women not supposed to study Torah. So.
I'm not studying. I'm just listening.
Well, I don't know if it's according to halakha. It's for sure like an opinion.
Okay. So anyway, let me just give you from my perspective. From my perspective, they don't believe that they received the law from Moses, right? So therefore, the way that they practice worship God, they receive from their own prophet. So in that view, there wouldn't be an avodah zarah, right? Because they're following what they received. If they were originally at Mount Sinai and they received Torah from Moses, And then they changed to receive a new prophet who changed the law for them and started practicing it in a different way, as Christians did. That would be Avodah Zorah.
Okay. So I explained this like a few minutes ago. Most people are not familiar that in Judaism, there's two categories here. There's idolatry for Jews and idolatry for Gentiles. However, when you're dialoguing with another religious person who's not Jewish, all they care about is what Judaism teaches idolatry is, not what they teach idolatry is for Gentiles. They don't know that we have this notion of the 7 laws of Noah, right? And that even the laws of like forbidden sexual relations are different for Gentiles than there are for Jews, right? A Gentile could marry his sister. I mean, it's completely different. That means, according to rabbinic literature, Gentiles are held to a very, very low standard. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? I mean, there's not much you could do in this life with 7 laws, while Jews are held up to a higher standard. So what they're asking is that according to Judaism, is what we believe idolatry. Yes, it would be idolatrous for a Jew to become a Muslim. So would you agree with that?
From that perspective, yes.
Yes, that's my whole point. That from a macro perspective, Islam is idolatry to Judaism. However, is a Muslim tolerated as a Gentile, as a non-idolater? Of course. I mean, even Tosfos said this about Christians. Even the Ashkenazi position.
Hello.
Hold on. The Ashkenazi position of the Ramah, Rashi, Tosfos is that Christianity is not idolatry for Gentiles. That's 100% in the Ashkenazi world. However, they would teach that it's idolatry for Jews. So there's a distinction again. Again, when you're arguing with a Muslim, he doesn't care about the Noahide system. He cares about, from a Torah perspective, is it idolatry? Yes, from a Torah perspective, Islam is idolatry.
Yeah, but I don't argue with them because they keep the law. Even though it's perverted, but it's still a law. To me, the Christianity is a much bigger problem because they canceled the law and keep nothing.
Okay, but that's a different thing. All these people are saying, and there's a portion of you texting on this video that I put up, right? Because they sent me a screenshot of it saying that I disagree with Asher on this, right? And this was that when she said to find errors in the Quran, and I found an error in the Quran, and then she explains it with hadith, and I said, well, you have to make a distinction. You mentioned Quran, and now you're mentioning a hadith in order to explain it. I know that's what Islam believes. Just like I know there's many Orthodox Jews that believe that on Mount Sinai, there was given another law. However, if you're going to say find the hole in the Quran, then you can't explain it away with a hadith unless she's honest enough to say, yes, it's an inconsistency to an outsider, but we as Muslims believe in this later text that explains it for us. That's an honest way to do it. That's how I do it with Judaism. Is there inconsistencies in the Torah? Absolutely. However, our rabbis give us explanations for it. But why would I mention that to someone in an academic debate, especially when the person's not Jewish? This is why it's dishonest. They're using unequal scales. And when I have a Jewish person here agreeing with them, it makes my...
I don't think what I was agreeing was what to what was being talked about. It was something prior to that. Because I don't remember what it was, but I wasn't agreeing to the Quran thing. That was... I think it's the timing of it was off.
Hello.
The text that you're seeing.
I think it's time to me to talk.
Can we finish talking,
okay.
please? We were in the middle of conversation. I mean, I know you want to talk, but it's kind of rude to try to get in between something. So anyway, like I said, I think everything is about the, approach, right? That if you want people to understand what you're saying, when you use the word idolatry, it carries completely different meaning than avodah zarah, right? And that's where people get really stuck because that sounds like you're insulting them, right?
Okay, wait. From all the TikToks that you're on, all these lives that you enter, would you say that I'm the nicest to religious Muslims? Like all the Jewish TikToks.
Yeah, from Jewish TikToks for sure.
Okay, why would they get offended? I mean, I clearly believe my religion is better, which is why I don't become a Muslim. But I tell them great things about Islam. I constantly say I consider it an ethical force for good. Now, I'm not going to praise Islam. I mean, to an extent that it's going to diminish Judaism. But from that perspective, why would you be against my approach? I'm promoting Judaism. Just doing that pisses them off to begin with, right? But I allow them on my show to dialogue. I don't like this girl, Atachi, whatever her name is, because it's all semantics with her. She'll take it. I mean, she doesn't let you talk, and she has tons of non sequiturs. And the rule in the Islamic world is that the longer you speak, the more long-winded you are, right? That seems more sophisticated. And this is not the way we do it in the show. We try to keep it concise, and we try to stick to the topic. Once we, in some way, come to some sort of stalemate on a topic, then we can move to a different topic, right? But it's just whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we like it's okay to disagree on certain things. It's fine. I think that you win more with honey than vinegar. So like being friends and
Yeah, but that's what I do. I mean, this is why people like talking to me. Muslims come in the show and they actually could talk religion with another religious person. However, am I supposed to lie and say Islam is not idolatry? Right?
Well, because
I told them,
it's not idolatry. It
is idolatry. You acknowledged that if a Jewish person converted to becoming a Muslim tomorrow, would he be an idolater? Yes or no?
If a Jewish person converted, yes.
Yes. That's
because
my
he
point.
received a different law and then he moved to something else.
Okay. And I acknowledge that for Gentiles, according to Jewish law, for Gentiles, Islam is tolerated. Wait, hold on. Okay. Just from a macro level, from our belief system, which is really how we should judge the world, right? That the world should strive to keep all these laws. From that perspective, it is idolatry. I mean, that's my point. Okay, go ahead. Elegna.
Okay. I think I want to point something. I really don't think Islam is the religion that is the best. Okay, I have my reasons, and I really don't think that Islam really be one of the best religions. I'd rather be Christian than being Muslim.
Why?
Because the perspective of how is the woman is valued is appreciated from Islam is even indignified.
But in Christianity, a woman is not allowed to divorce her husband, no matter what husband does.
Are you sure? That's
Yep.
No, actually, you can sign and we have like me Christian like talking. I'm not Christian anymore, but I am Catholic race. You can send a letter to the Vatican, and they're all gonna just.
That is the reform, but according to the New Testament, that was forbidden by Jesus, and it was forbidden for almost 500 years until the reformists changed it.
Wait, hold on. I mean, where in the New Testament does it lay down marriage law?
I can Google it, but
Google it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it doesn't say.
But it is there. I mean, even the King of England had to change religion so that he could divorce. No, right. It's the law.
No, it's not the law. It's because England was Catholic, and Catholicism did not allow divorce. It only allows what later became known as annulment. So this is the birth of the Anglican Church, but that doesn't mean that it's built off the words of Jesus, right? I mean, they did their own.
It is in Matthew. I mean, give me a second. Let me grab my computer. I'll look up the exact verse in Matthew, but it's clearly forbidden. And it was forbidden, and you're saying it's only Catholic. Well, Catholic was the only Christianity.
No, I know.
Until
but it's not explicit in the New Testament, as far as I know.
Well, okay, so let's go even farther. Okay. It's not explicit because Christianity has no laws. Right?
No, I understand.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Can I approach the idea? Okay. As a Catholic, the Bible is a big part of their religion, but there is other things, okay? And for me, it's the nicest religion. If it wouldn't be, it's not the wisest. The wisest is the Judaism, okay? But the most open, I think, is Catholic. I have heard talk about, and the Pope have talked about LGBTQ community, about.
Yeah, so this is the thing.
I mean, I kicked her off. I mean, it's like my audience is getting bored. I'm sorry. To come on the show, you have to have a certain knowledge of biblical ideas in terms of just giving your opinion over whatever. Yeah, go ahead, Ruben.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 1 second, but I mean, there's multiple things like to what she was saying.
Yeah, there's
you
nothing
know.
explicit in the New Testament that
No, I mean, it even says like women should be silent and can't
oh, but
talk.
that's
There's a
different.
ton
I
of
mean,
that
that's
stuff.
cultural,
No,
first of all.
but what I'm saying is the claim is that the Christianity somehow is superior to Judaism and
No, to Islam, you said.
No, she said to Judaism also. She said Catholic are the most free for women. That's what she said at the
Oh,
end.
well, I mean, I don't know what she said there. But yes, I mean, I think Christian women obviously have more rights than Muslim women. I'm not saying that I agree with that.
Modern world.
Okay, fine. But anyways, this is not the discussion here. I just wish, for some reason, there's a lot of people who come in the show and like praise many things I do, but whenever they enter another TikTok, they start off with saying, "I don't agree with everything Asher says." Right? Like that. First of all,
I got the
should
verse,
be a
by the
given.
way. I got the verse. Matthew 19:9. I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another woman commits adultery.
Okay. But where does it say that a woman can file for divorce?
What does that mean?
So that means that because this is the opinion of Beit Shammai on what excuse do you need to divorce your wife. So from that perspective, well, you could say that a woman could divorce her husband if he was unfaithful, right?
Yeah, but
right. So it shows that women could get a divorce.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just pointing out that that's what the New Testament says, that you cannot divorce. And
no, you could divorce.
No, but the church went with it. You know that was fact, right? This is why Protestant religion developed. Like this was the King of England wanted to divorce, so he made up a new branch of Christianity just so he could
Catholicism. But Catholicism wasn't strictly built off of the Bible. Right? I mean, Protestantism is clearly closer to the text.
Christianity is strictly from the Bible. Let's be fair. Christianity made up their own thing.
Catholicism. I'm just trying to be accurate. Christian women have more rights than Muslim women back then and today. Okay, I'm not saying again that I agree with all these rights. I'm just trying to state a fact. So that being said, people always go on lives, and it's obvious. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. I think I'm the most approachable person that I let people come in here and dialogue with me. And I've been doing this for a pretty long time on YouTube as well. Everybody knows that I don't just shut people down. Okay, so there's no reason for you to say, I don't agree with everything Asher says. Obviously you don't. I don't agree with anyone. The day you start agreeing with everything your teachers or the people you learn from teach, that's when you know you're in a cult. Okay, and this is not what I'm trying to encourage you.
So then what's the problem? I disagreed with you. I don't know why you feel like I feel like you're offended by it or something.
I am offended because in the middle of a debate, the last thing you want is for an Orthodox Jew to get up and say, I agree with the Muslims.
Well, but this was I wasn't talking in that moment. It was about something like that you said probably a few minutes prior to that.
Okay, so they mentioned I went on a TikTok live today.
The timing that was off.
Like 2 Muslims came up to me and saying, even Orthodox Jews say you're wrong, And the truth is, I dialogue with the Orthodox first whenever they disagree. And 9 out of 10 times, they're like, you know what? I may not agree with him, but he has a point. That's it.
I'd say that on this app, there's probably no one else who defends you more than me. I go into lives even when you're not there, when people talking crap about you, and I argue with people and defend you all the time. That's anytime your name is brought up, that's all I do is I defend you. So if in that way, in that video, you felt like betrayed by me, then I apologize for that, and I did not mean it to come out that way.
No, I think that you betrayed the religion essentially. When Judaism is debating Islam, and every moment a Muslim's on this TikTok, he's proselytizing. Every moment. I mean, they don't open their mouth if they're not trying to win new converts, right? And all I do here on TikTok, this is the only reason I have a TikTok, is to let people know that if they wanted to, they could become Jewish. And now suddenly everyone's like, even Jews disagree with you, whatever. Like, we don't have to continue on this, but I think that maybe you should think twice before agreeing with Muslims in the middle of a heated discussion when you may have been responding to something else, but they're thinking like, oh, thank you, Reuven. Like Reuven gets it, this and that. Guess what? I understand that the hadith is elevated to Muslims, but in an academic discussion, you can't bring down your personal religious beliefs and expect the other side to validate them as, oh, okay, I no longer believe the Jews corrupted the Torah because you told me that Rashi explained it away. I'm just telling you, it's.
I mean, I go more by in the case of Islam, I go more by Rambam. So that maybe I have a weak spot from that, but Rambam, like, to me, is where I draw my connection to Judaism.
Okay. So the Rambam called Muhammad Majnun, like crazy person. Like, would you say that to a Muslim too?
I don't know. I'd have to see what context he said it in.
Okay, fine. Like, he calls him the madman. I'm just saying, and he even tells us that we can encourage Christians to become Jewish, but not Muslims, because Muslims will specifically use it against you.
I don't think we're ever going to convince any Muslims to become Jewish.
Right. So that shows that Christianity is a lot closer to Judaism than Islam is, because 99% of the people I convert to Judaism come from Christianity, not Islam.
I think the thing is, to me, I guess it's everybody has their own like belief and approach, right? So to me, the core of what I see as the most important thing that exists to somebody, regardless of what religion they're part of, to me, the core of it is, do they practice clear, concise ethical law that leads to the betterment of society? That is where I focus. So this is why I follow Judaism, because I agree with the law that the God gave us, right? Regardless, this is why it doesn't scare me when I find inconsistencies in the text. This is why I can, agree with like the document hypothesis, and it doesn't ruin my belief system. This is why atheists can destroy my belief systems. And this is why when I talk to Muslims and I see that like 90% of the law is the same, like there's some ritualistic things that are different, but from ethical perspective, we essentially follow the same law, and it's the law that leads to the betterment of society. It's the law that builds the civilization that we live in. So of course I'm going to agree with that over something like that, anything else. And in that way, to me, Christianity takes the worst opposite way, because it does the essentially same thing that.
I don't want to.
Hold on, I'm sorry. It's
same thing. Non sequitur. Forget about Christianity. We're talking about Islam right now. With all that, like the gloves that you wear with Islam, they're still gonna do all they can to convert your children to Islam. And if you're not constantly trying to impact them, right, there won't be a Jewish people. And I'm not trying to be mean to Muslims. I'm just trying to state what most rabbinic sources teach of what idolatry is. And one reason I don't respect Muslims is because, first and foremost, you have to be honest. Okay? First, tell the truth, then give your opinion, right? This is Dennis Prager's big line. And from the outset, they're deceitful. Right when they're saying, well, Moses was a Muslim, and they keep on saying it every discussion, when everybody knows that, yes, Moses was a Muslim, like Muhammad was a Christian. If Muhammad wasn't a Christian, then Moses wasn't a Muslim. It's dishonest, or perhaps they just have a very low IQ. Okay, they're deceitful from the outset. They'll challenge the Torah, but you can't challenge the Quran without also accepting their autocorrect system called the Hadith as divinely inspired. That's dishonest. If someone knows nothing about what's going on in a dialogue, right, but all you know is someone is lying and someone isn't, right? Even on small things, I would go with the person that's telling the truth, because that person holds truth as a value. If someone lies to you about one thing, they're most likely going to lie to you about something else. This is why I don't like Muslims. I'll tell you, there's many Christians who come here and honestly say they struggle with their faith. Honestly. And it's part of Christianity to struggle, to suffer long, right? Not in Islam. Even in Islam, if they're not convinced, they'll tell you they are, because it's this religion made up of essentially rejects, right? They're the founders of cannibalistic monotheism. They destroy, relationships with other religions on something so trivial. I thought you said that you cared more about ethics, but the biggest issue between you and Christians is the Trinity, is not ethics, right?
No, however, it's the opposite. To me, I don't care about Trinity. I care about that they don't keep the law.
Oh, this is why I said Messianic Jews, right? And you're saying that's almost none. Listen, then you consider that Messianic Jews should be accepted as Jews?
No.
Okay. So what's your issue with them?
They follow different God.
Ah, the Trinity. You see? So it's essentially the
But that's a
Trinity.
secondary.
All right. Okay, fine. Anyways, unless you want to continue with the topic.
No, I'm fine with that. Like I said, I apologize for the way that it was presented. I did not mean it and didn't expect that it would come out that, to make you feel like I went against you in any way.
No, it's not
Like
me. It's Judaism.
oh,
I mean, I think
I'm not going against Judaism. I mean, that I actually feel like that's not
I mean,
not
you
a
made
good
a few
argument.
statements, that Islam is better to women than Jews are, right? I mean, there's a lot of things you said that could be misconstrued that would, if someone was considering becoming Jewish, right, they would, by hearing that, would definitely become a Muslim. And I know what you meant, right? But that's not how they heard it. You looked for the most extreme example in the Torah, right? And try to compare it to Islam of today. That's not what Judaism is. Judaism is essentially what Jews do and what Muslims do, right? So even from that perspective, Judaism is superior. But you have to let them know, because most Jews are too humble and too docile that are scared to say, I believe my religion is better than yours, right? Like they're not giving you the same courtesy. You're nice to them, and I'm nice to them also, but you don't have to overdo it just to be liked.
I don't do anything to be liked. I could care less if people like me or not. My goal is not to be liked. I mean, that's not. I don't make money with this account or something like that. I'm here to try to get more people to become more ethical.
Okay, and I'm here to get people to become more Jewish. That's it.
Yeah, but this is the problem, though. I see, I know what you're trying to do, and I 100% support it and 100% agree with what you're doing. But the problem is that those people, that they're going to hear you on TikTok and want to convert, they're going to get rejected.
Well, then they're pawns for a greater world that we're trying to build here. And yes, I mean, everyone who converts to Judaism nowadays is going to be made to suffer. I mean, God willing, one day, with all these people suffering in the name of Judaism, things will end up changing. That's it. I mean, it's like anything great that happens. If there's no blood, if there's no sweat, there's no glory. All right. I mean, yes, Judaism has a problem. And I acknowledge it here all the time. I mean, I bash Jews as much as I bash Muslims. There's a lot of soul searching that has to be done in the Jewish people, for sure. Okay. But that doesn't mean that because Jews themselves don't have to act together, that I'm in some way not going to spread Torah because of them. All right. Because they don't speak for Torah, by the way. I mean, they could go to hell. I mean, according to me, the average person who calls themselves Jewish here and I'm Israeli and I don't believe in God is not Jewish in my eyes. Okay, they may be legally Jewish.
I agree. It's from the Rambam perspective, same thing. If you're atheist, you're not.
Fine. I mean, they may be legally Jewish, but what does that mean?
I don't think even legally. I think even from legal perspective. Hold on, let me look it up. I actually.
No, it's just that idolaters.
No, there's something else. I mean, yeah, if they never were religious, then they fall under Tinoket Shinishba, right? But if they used to be religious, they grew up in it, and then they decided to walk away, then that's completely removed. Then you're Apikoros, and then you get corrupt.
You can still marry a Jewish person, and you're still liable to the death penalty if you break Shabbat in Israel. I mean, so they have the status of an Israelite, but that's not a religious status. I mean, it's not one that's validated by God, which is the way these people make it seem like they have a right to the land just because they happen to have a supposed Jewish pedigree.
All that stuff. I hate those claims. But hold on. I'm actually curious on that because I was looking at that.
Yeah, it's in Serbia chapter 13. It says, I mean specifically on someone who converts and then drops Judaism and goes back to idolatry. I mean, he says that person has a status of an idolatrous Israelite. So it's a notion. You could be an idolatrous Israelite.
Is it chapter 3? Hold on, let me.
No, 13. I think it's 13. The end of chapter.
13. No, isn't it an Avodah Zarah also?
Oh, I don't know. No, that says real. Well, anyways, fine. It's
anyway, yeah, not important. I think it's the what makes you a heretic, right? That if you were following God and then you walked away and cursed God and
the Rambam says that person has to be put to death by Jews.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that
right. I mean, even without a Sanhedrin, I guess most people don't teach that. But yeah, I mean, it's weird how idiots like Andrea, call me an Islamophobe when I'm so friendly to Muslims. I'm so friendly. I mean, to the point that I don't identify as a religious Zionist or anything. And it's people are so silly. Of course, they don't come here and dialogue with me. Who's more approachable than me, honestly? All right.
I mean, I
Anyone
don't
would
want
call
to
me up.
like engage in lashon hara, but I cannot stand that person. Like even her voice drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, she's schizophrenic, clearly, and she's not a nice person. But regardless, anyone out there who wants to debate, and I have over 180 debates on my channel, like go to TorahJudaism.org, call me up and we'll do a live debate, whether you're Muslim, atheist, Christians. I've done it all, but the idea that I'm just a hater, come on, man. I mean, no one's going to believe it who's actually sat through one of my lives. However, you have to be intellectually honest. And when people are just trying to, I hate non sequiturs. They're like, oh, you don't even know what that word means. And they'll start defining something. It has nothing to do with the topic. And I'm specifically talking about that Muslim girl that I would love to invite her on, assuming that she's not going to do that. But now that I mentioned it, just hear it when she does. That's it. People do that when they can't respond, so they have to in some way move the conversation or move the goalpost. It's silly. Fine.
Yeah, I think overall the focus has been in the wrong place. I think that the more should be in like trying to explain and bring people in to Judaism instead of debating who's got it right.
All right, so I disagree. Because when you're trying to win people from other religions who for the longest time have confidently been saying that we corrupted the Torah, that everyone should become Muslim, and they rewrite the Torah by saying that every prophet brought something new, so this justifies the existence of Muhammad because he also brought something new, which is not true, right? Every prophet didn't bring something new. That makes Judaism look bad. This makes Jews lose faith in Judaism when they don't see other Jews defending it, right? And this is why most people don't want to be Jewish, because most Jews, I'm sorry, most Jewish men are pussies. They're pussies and they have no courage, okay? So they see me here confidently battling a Christian, an atheist, a Muslim, and like proper fools, they hate me for it. Instead of saying, you know what, he's doing something I can't do, right? They begin to hate me for it, and they align themselves with the people I'm debating. Whatever.
And I think like the overall what's the point of taking somebody who already follows like ethical monotheism to try to move into another ethical monotheism? Like the net gain to the world is zero, right? But if you take somebody who doesn't follow the laws, like atheists or Christians, and bring him in, now there's a positive gain, right? So that's what I'm looking for, is the positive gain to the society.
Well, I think I have a bigger picture, because I know becoming religious actually means nothing. It's how long you remain religious. So if someone comes to ethics on some flimsy foundation, what typically does happen is that they leave not just that religion, they leave God in general, and they make more heretics, right? Or make people more heretical. I hate using that word, heretical. More unethical than how they were before they came to the religion. So it's better to give someone something more palatable, something more purposeful and meaningful, than allow them to enter Christianity and Islam and leave them unchallenged and unchecked. That being said, I prefer every atheist to become an ethical Muslim and an ethical Christian, okay? However, I prefer every Christian and every Muslim to become a Jew. And if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. That's just the way it is. If we're not encouraging Judaism, we're slowly destroying it. And this is just the way the world works.
But what's the number one growing religion in the world? It's atheism, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you classify that as a religion, well,
okay, a belief system,
I don't know. No.
I
mean, it can't be atheism. Maybe in the West.
Yeah, in the West, because that's where the most noise is. The rest of the world will follow where suit, right? It's generally, what do people do? They follow whatever the capital does, right? The West is the point that everyone is facing. And if the West is going away from religion, then everyone else will slowly go away from religion the same way. It's the same thing that happened when, what happened with Soviet Union, right? Everybody that were the satellites of Soviet Union started doing the same thing. They also started becoming communist, which was their own religion. And you might disagree that communism is a religion, but whatever, belief system. It's the same thing, like look at what's going on. Like what do most people believe in now in the whatever is going on TV and everywhere else? But What's the point of arguing with Muslims and even Christians? Like, we should argue with atheists, bring them in.
So I agree that atheism is the biggest threat towards Jews. I think that we should dialogue with both of them, or the three of them. I mean, this idea that Islam is growing, Judaism has always been shrinking. How many converts are there to Judaism a year in America? Probably less than 200.
But
There's
that's our own fault.
25,000 converts to Islam every year in America. Now, these are people who are anti the state of Israel. These are people who ultimately believe that if they had power, we'd be the Noahides. We'd have, like the dhimmi status and have to pay a tax to them. So if we don't impact their theology, they're going to end up impacting our whole existence. So it just makes sense to in some way clip their wings or put them on a better path than a flimsy religion like Islam and Christianity that have a track record of, although they're ethical, they do have a track record of flying off the handle and massacring a bunch of Jews and then kind of washing their hands from it and saying, that was them, that's not us. Okay, we don't have a track record of that. We've done it in the past, I'm sure, but if I was a betting man in terms of peaceful religions, for sure docile religions, I would choose Judaism over Islam and Christianity. That being said, I find redeemable qualities in both. Okay, but I know that being that I'm not going to live forever and I want to leave this world a little better than I found it for my kids, and my kids are Jewish, the best way to do that is to make more Jews. That's it. I'm not attacking a Muslim, right? I mean, I endorse Islam and I endorse Christianity as good. I just endorse Judaism as better. What other Jewish person has ever said that on TikTok?
I agree with you that Judaism is the best approach. I mean, that's not going to be an argument from my side. I would never say that somebody should go to another religion over Judaism. My approach is that if they don't go to Judaism, but they want to come to God, then I would recommend Islam over Christianity.
Yeah, but you said we should dialogue with them about this, and we should just work, talk to atheists, right?
No, I'm saying like we shouldn't be debating on the merit of like we should try to bring Muslims here or Jews should go to Islam. No, that's what I'm against. I'm saying we should be allies, not like.
So that's impossible with Islam because it's the core of Islam is that we corrupted holy scriptures. We corrupted the existence of the biblical prophet. By definition, their theology means they teach that we're charlatans. How can we coexist with people like this? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're not just going to let bygones be bygones. They're going to try to convert you or they're going to subdue you. That's part of the theology. So I think we should do the same thing. And all we're really doing is responding to their objections. They say that we corrupted it, right? And then we'll say, well, your text is actually a little more corrupted than ours, like whether you consider that a debate, I'm just responding to Islamic claims on Judaism, right? As much as I want every Muslim to convert to Judaism. And so it's not that I want to debate, just responding or dialoguing with a Muslim is always going to be a debate.
Yeah, but again, my question is why? Why even engage then? Like, why doesn't it matter? I just
explained it because if we don't, we're going to end up suffering for it in the long run. The only way to make this world a better place is by making more Jews. The only way to bless Israel is by becoming Jewish yourself. That as much as I could tolerate ethical Muslims and ethical Christians, I would rather have a colleague, right? I mean, someone, actual amitecha, like a brother of mine, than someone who thinks that I corrupted the word of God or that I killed Jesus. You understand? It's just safer, right? So I'm just telling you what I think is better. I'm not saying that this is the only path, but we do have to respond, or then the average Muslim would never leave Islam because no one challenges Islam.
Yeah, but I think that this is where I would say that, the best is the enemy of good, right? So trying to fighting on too many fronts at the same time is the problem, right? You spread your attention too thin and you're not winning the war where you should be focusing your attention.
It's not for everybody. I agree. I could do it. That's it.
Okay.
I'm the only one doing it anyways. So why do people care? It's because I think in the back of their mind, they know what one person could accomplish in this life. And being that I've converted thousands of people, and most people, one person could do a lot in this world. So I don't understand why they're so angry. Well, I'm sorry. I do understand because they know how influential I am. I mean, I've been on TikTok a few months and look how many people watch my show. It's because I have what to say, and I'm very respectful towards Christians, Muslims, and atheists, and I never push anyone away. You want to dialogue with me? Let's dialogue. Now, it is being recorded, and I will put it up, so
I don't care. I'm fine with that.
no, I'm not
Like
talking
I
about
said,
you. I'm talking about my opponents.
yeah. I mean, I'm like I said, I mean, if that's what you want to do, you want to engage in on every front. That's your choice. I think that our attention being spent towards the atheism would be a much better
I agree.
source of energy.
I agree. There's Jews for Judaism. There's Tovia Singer, and there's no organization out there that actually confronts the biggest threat hurting religious Jews, and that's atheism.
Yeah.
Why? Because I've heard rabbis tell me that it's better for a Jew to be an atheist than to be a Christian. They're quite stupid to think that we have more in common with atheistical Jews than we do with people who actually believe in the Bible. But whatever, I'm built for it, and I could I could take it, I could dish it out.
I saw what atheism did over the last century. I don't need more convincing that it's the detriment to the world. And that's why our focus should be to bring people to, I mean, and you talk to the modern day atheist, and the ideas keep spiraling worse and worse and worse. Like, if you think about it now, like if you see even on TikTok, first of all, they proselytize more than anybody else, right? It's always these anti-religion groups all over TikTok. They proselytize more than Christians, more than Muslims. That's the number one. TikTok lives are atheists against religious people, trying to misrepresent them in the bad way, try to misrepresent beliefs in the bad way, and that it's working, right? Because it's telling people to do this, or it's the ones where it's like, oh, I used to be in this horrible religion, I have trauma, and their trauma was like their daddy didn't buy them a present on time or something. Like, the trauma thing is being overexploited also like crazy. And then with all this, like the arguments now used to be that religion is bad. Now the arguments are there's no free will, like free will doesn't exist. Well, you know how far that can take you, right? If free will doesn't exist, then you have no guilt. You could do anything because you had no choice. It's your environment that made you do it. So you could be the worst criminal in the world, and it's not your choice. You have no free will, right? It's the people around you that made you do it. The guilt is disappearing. It's all just collective guilt, right? We're blaming collectivism on everything in that sense. And this is where I believe the focus should be. Bring people out of that lie into the reality.
Right. And they'll hate you as much as they hate me, for that form of proselytizing too, unfortunately. The average Jew stupidly believes that atheism is better than any other religion outside of Judaism, and the people typically making these claims aren't even religiously Jewish. So if they hate me, I mean, to quote a great Jewish leader that I happen not to be a part of his religion, they will hate you as well.
I don't care if people hate me.
All right, okay, fine. I mean, that being said, like, if I would in some way agree with you, I wouldn't start off the conversation with, I don't agree with everything that Ruben says, because if I agree with the majority of what you say, I would probably say I agree with Ruben. But fine. For me,
I understand that was, like I said, I apologize for that.
The Hebrew Hammer does the same thing, and he's also like someone who's likes what I have to say for the most part. But everyone else is sort of the thing.
I understand how it came off, and I do regret the way that it happened, and I apologize for that.
All right, no problem. I appreciate it. You're welcome, Hood.
Hello. Hi. How you doing today?
Doing good.
Doing all right. How you doing, Ruben? Mr. Ruben?
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, y'all doing all right? Okay, that's good. So, I'm going to be honest, man. To the host, that might be the most crazy thing that I ever heard. You said that, most Jews or some Jews that you heard speak, they said they'd rather be atheists than be any other religion. Bro, but, like, what do you say towards that? Like, what do you tell those Jews whenever you hear that? Because that's kind of insane.
So they have a chip on their shoulder because they've been mistreated by Muslims and Christians. They have this weird understanding because atheism, as it exists today, is a predominantly Jewish movement. The the most prominent atheists are Jewish. We're disproportionately represented in this movement. And because the average Jew has atheists in their lives, in their families, that they think that there are no enemies from within.
Right.
That's the issue. I mean,
Okay. Oh.
yeah. So it's really like one, a lack of history because they don't know that Jews really suffered greatly, not just under the hands of atheists, but under the hands of other Jews, from the Izvestia, from like.
Евсекция.
There you go. Thank
Right.
you, Russian speaker.
Just like troubles in general. I'm getting you. I'm getting you.
Izvestia, I think, was like a newspaper, wasn't it? No, there's Pravda, like, and there was another one. I think it was called Izvestia.
No, so there was the organization after the revolution in Russia when it became Soviet Union. Like it wasn't even called Soviet Union yet. There was an organization by atheist Jews called Yevsekция, which, if you translate to English, would mean the Jewish sector. And it was the part of the KGB that was tasked with eliminating religious Jews. So they hunted down and put in prison and executed and tortured rabbis and religious people all over the world. Even like the Lubavitcher Rebbe was tortured by them. I mean, they did terrible things to their own people, basically. So it's
Right.
they were all communist, anti-religion atheists.
Yeah.
It's the wickedness of man, honestly. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah,
y'all
Jews
like.
are not very nice people, unfortunately. And I'm not promoting Jews here. I'm promoting Judaism, which, I mean, for me, is solidified with Torah. Like, if someone doesn't believe in Torah, in my eyes, they shouldn't even call themselves Jewish. Okay, are they legally Jewish? I mean, I have to make this claim because they'll be like, according to halakha, but the average person doesn't believe in halakha. Yes, secular Jews, for the most part, religiously, are not important to God or special in any way. That's it. Or they're an unethical Jewish person is on the same level as an unethical non-Jewish person.
So from what I read in the Bible, no, I don't think God has forgotten about the Jews at all. God made promises. The God of Israel, He made promises to the Jews, but He hasn't forgot about. God. No, God hasn't forgotten about Israel, but I don't know.
We're not saying that we're
Right.
Israel also here, by the way. Israel is a concept, is essentially a philosophy. Yes, the people of God are made up of any generation in a given time that has committed themselves.
You got a phone call, I think. Yeah, he's got a phone call. He'll be back in a minute.
Who is? Huh?
Yeah, I mean, I just got a phone call. I'm sorry. I just keep on, my phone doesn't stop ringing. I mean, if I put this on airplane mode, I think it's gonna cut off. So
Try to use
Am I still on with you
most
guys?
of the time.
oh, that makes
So-
sense.
So I just
Yeah, so we're not bashing Israel here. Like, we're
no.
Israel.
I know that
as
you
well.
are Jew. You are a Jewish Judaism, right? But my biggest thing is, why don't y'all just like accept? Why don't y'all accept Jesus Christ? Like, I know y'all feel like He didn't, perform all the prophecies or whatever.
Got it.
But
You know, But the way you said that really showed that you cared. And I mean, it looks like you really want Jews to come to the saving grace or that is your attitude towards Jewish people is the same attitude that I want Jews to have towards everybody else. Care enough to say what's good for me, my brother, is good for you. So this is why. I mean, I think God loves Christians. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, apart from all our theological differences, okay, that sincerity, I think, assuming God could smile, put a smile in God's face. Now, however, there's theology we have to deal with. There's source text that we have to deal with that, in my opinion, don't harmonize between the New Testament and the Jewish Bible, Tanakh, Torah, whatever you want to call it. Right? That's the issue. I mean, it's not that we hate Jesus. Okay, clearly, I mean, someone would have to be an idiot to say that Jesus was an unethical person. Clearly, I mean, he was fighting against the same things we're fighting against today: the hypocrisy,
Right.
not just in the Jewish world, but in the religious world. Okay, now the idea of him dying for your sins, the whole theological aspect, apart from the ethical one, that's what we have an issue with, right? Well, we have no issue accepting him as one of our own. Yeah, Jesus was Jewish; he was a righteous Jew. Him being God, him being a Messiah, him dying for your sins—that's our big beef,
So okay, I do know about the theology of Judaism a little bit, because I look in the news and a lot of Jews don't know this, but with the red heifer,
yeah,
okay, in the Old Testament, that was for to blot out sins, or atone for sins, because whenever Moses was commanded to do it, for the red heifer thing. So
that's not what it was for. So, with the ashes of the red heifer removes impurity that's acquired through touching a dead body. I mean, it's not to remove sins.
So
it was placed in water, and you immersed in it before you entered the temple.
Yeah, look, so exactly, impurity, right?
Yeah.
So that impurity, man didn't create that impurity. So it's impurity from what God says is impure, right? Because other man didn't say what was impure or not. This all comes from God.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that impurity right there. Well, whenever Adam and Eve sinned, that's when they became impure.
Here, listen.
So
look, by the simple fact that you're focusing on foreshadowings, basically saying that this symbolizes this and this. I mean, it sounds very poetic, symbolic, and hyperbolic. So that's not how we decipher the Word of God. We first read it literally. Okay, we know God wouldn't speak to us in riddles because He's not cruel like that. Only because you're not sharp enough to pick up a joke, God's going to punish you, or that. God tells us that the way we please Him is by keeping His laws. If you want to say, well, this law symbolizes the Messiah, this law symbolizes hell, that could mean that to you. But why would a good God then punish me for not accepting your interpretation? It just doesn't sound right.
No, it's not even that. It's not even that right there. So you said that God, we are made righteous by keeping the laws, right? That's what you believe?
Yeah.
Keeping the laws makes you righteous.
Right.
So can you explain what it means to repent in Judaism? Like, when you hear repent, what do you do?
So the word teshuvah means to return. That means you fell off that horse, get back on that horse. And what's essentially that horse? Keeping God's commandments.
Right.
It has nothing to do with pounding on your chest or whatever they do during Yom Kippur that we call Mechila, which doesn't even appear in the Torah. But
so, do you know any Jew that has ever repented from their sins?
Yeah, King David. Basically, every Jew who's ever lived, assuming he's religious, repented at one point or the other.
So, okay, you brought up King David, but can we agree that back then God dealt with his creation differently than He does now?
No, we can't. We can't agree with that.
Well, in the old days, like in the Old Testament, God would appear and God would flood the earth. God isn't flooding the earth now. That's all I'm saying.
Well, because He made a promise. Here, look, we have to move forward with this because I mean, it's just I don't think you're making.
It's like you're bringing up King David repentance and trying to say that it's equal now. But
sorry, can I try to answer you what you're saying?
If you read the Bible, then it's a transitional book. It starts off one way.
I'm gonna have to do like a Simon here. You know,
Yeah.
like you know, like
I,
and you know, like the three X's. If you can't make your point, it's I get that he's
Yeah.
passionate, you know, but I just can't let you drop my viewership. The average person who comes on the show knows enough about the Bible, both, you know, the Christian Bible and the Jewish Bible, to be able to at least make a good swing towards Asher. You know, there you go, me talking in the third person. Kind of weird. You know, but it's just like, I mean, you know,
Honestly,
respectfully, guys, we have to keep
honestly, Rabbi, it just comes from they don't have the understanding not to put anything on the same level as Torah. That's
Yeah, no,
really
he has great
all it is.
intentions.
That's really all it is.
yeah, I think it's more
So
than
what?
that. I
So what?
think
No,
it's the
when they
misunderstanding of
read,
the concept.
honestly,
Sorry,
no.
right?
Honestly, what I think is when they read what they call the New Testament, they honestly believe it to be the Word of God. So that's where that whole that's what the miscommunication is. Honestly, what I believe. Because if you
Well,
don't
they
put
have to
that, if
first.
you don't put those writings on the same level as the instructions that were given, then there can be no miscommunication on what's
Yeah,
authoritative and what's not.
yeah. Well,
Well,
the thing
they have to
is,
first believe, right? They have to first believe in Jesus, and then they find evidence for him in the Bible, right? It works backwards. It's not that they read the text and they believe. It's first they believe, and then they find evidence. So
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
backwards
I agree
approach.
with that. I agree with that. I
now
can agree
Jews do
with
that
that.
also, by the way. I mean, to be honest,
Yeah, I'm not
I mean,
saying
the
that.
average Jew is as illogical in his theology than the average Christian and the average Muslim, to the point that the average rabbi is not going to come up here and make a distinction between the Torah and the prophets. He just won't do it. I mean, to the point, like he'll throw even midrashim in the mix and say that it was all given on Mount Sinai or something silly like that. So I can't blame these guys for coming up here and expecting to get certain responses from me, because that's what they get from most rabbis. I'm not most rabbis, okay? I think there's probably like 5 prominent rationalist rabbis on the internet. I think I've been doing it longer than they have, even though I'm not as old as they are, right? But most people are not familiar with this approach, which is that we respond to everything, but we have a systematic theology. There's a hierarchy to our beliefs. We don't lump everything together just because it's easy. Because it's easy to say, you know, like keep the Talmud because it was given alongside the Torah. That's the way maybe that you talk to kids. But people who have real questions, you have to give real answers.
But what I was saying is, like, I think the answer should be all together. Is when somebody comes and says, why don't you accept Jesus and convert to Christianity? The answer is not that I don't believe that he fulfilled prophecies or something like that. That has nothing to do with it whatsoever. The answer should be that the theology overall, the philosophy, is completely different. Like the approach to the goal is different, right? In Judaism, the focus is on your life here, to be the best person that you could be here, to build the best community, the best future for your children, and that you will struggle with the law and you'll do your best to fulfill it. And when you fail, you will repent for it and move forward. In Christianity, this is all just a stage to get you ready to go to heaven. Like this is not the important. It's just what you're gonna do later. And you're just playing this game where you're trying to get most bonuses in the next level. That's what the difference is.
I'm glad that this is the only show teaching Judaism on TikTok, because this is the type of Judaism that I want them to hear. I don't want to, like if like the Rabbi Mizrahi had some sort of audience on TikTok, like it would frustrate me, because I'm like, oh, he's teaching nonsense regarding Judaism, but it doesn't get clearer and more to the point than what Reuven just said. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, I had a question I joined with, but going on this conversation, the rabbi you just mentioned with the nonsense, if you could give maybe like a abridged version of what he says and why that's nonsensical, because I'm
Sure.
kind of unfamiliar.
Sure. So only because something is nonsensical, what doesn't mean there isn't a source for it. So one thing that like really threw him under the bus is that he teaches that when children die during childbirth, it's because they were people who broke the Sabbath in previous lives. He believes that even today, Jews have an obligation to harm Christians, right? There's many times you're saying, if it was legal, I'd kill you, right? I mean, they fail to make a distinction between laws that only apply in the land of Israel and laws that apply outside the land of Israel. They have a chip on their shoulder, an irrational chip against Christianity, and stay quiet regarding everything Islamic, right? When the Jews in Israel aren't fighting Christians, they're fighting religious Muslims. Where else? Now, he did make some statements that I do agree with. I made a video defending him. Like, his statements about the Holocaust were quite accurate. I mean, I've mentioned it on my channel years before. But yeah, I mean, him and his student in particular, I think makes Judaism look primitive and backwards. Yeah, that's redundant. But yeah.
Are you talking about Mizrahi and Yaron Reuven?
Yes.
Which part of the Holocaust do you agree with them on? The one that it was caused by the atheists?
Correct.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, the Hafetz
Because
Chaim.
he made some other claims about Holocaust that are horrible, and that's why I was hoping you didn't support those.
Yeah. I've been teaching this for a while. I mean, I'm a student of Burl Wein and all the other Jewish historians that basically said the same thing.
Yeah, no, from that perspective, I agree. I'm talking about how he was saying that it's because some people were praying wrong or talking in synagogues. Mizrahi said once that Holocaust happened because people were talking in synagogue during prayer.
Yeah, no, I don't know. That I don't agree with, but fine.
I also had another question. I guess it's pertaining to, and I know you, from my previous conversations with you, don't get too much into kind of metaphysical claims, but in terms of like prophethood, what is the last prophet in your?
There's still prophets today. Why should we assume that prophecy ended? The Torah never said prophecy was going to end. There's a Midrash.
I believe. I mean, honestly, I believe that. I do.
Yeah, and you know what? Oh no. I mean, I'm too cool to be a prophet. I mean, prophets, they walk around in feces and stuff like that, and dressing like in polyester. Not me, not this prophet.
I could say that somebody like Lubavitcher Rebbe could have been a prophet, right? I mean, look at how much he accomplished.
For sure. In terms, there's a practical notion of a prophet, like someone who's actually bringing you physically back to God, or the Jewish people back to God. And then there's a prophet that's validated by the Sanhedrin and stuff like that. I mean, I don't really think we know the ins and outs of what a prophet does or is expected to do. Most people run with the Rambam. The Rambam, in his introduction to Perek Halak, I think, he lays down the rabbinic understanding of what a prophet is and isn't, and how you could only be a prophet in the land of Israel and stuff like that. From a Torah perspective, the job of the prophet is to bring you back to a Torah. That's all. Now, there's a midrash. There's a legend in the Talmud that says that after the destruction of the Second Temple, prophecy ceased. That the only prophecy that was given out was given to crazy people and to children. But that's just one legend that Maimonides didn't believe. The Ramchal didn't believe it. I mean, Mesilas Yesharim, he has a book called the Path of the Just. Is a book that he says that if you master, you would attain prophecy. So it's not a monolithic understanding. Prophets still exist, and Muhammad is that final prophet. There you go. I just became a Muslim.
Play too much.
No, thank you for that.
Now, if I don't make myself laugh, come on, let's do it.
In terms of like Torah, would you say that there's, because one thing I like to specific law I like to bring up is like and having to do with eating pork. Now, do you think that law is like specifically about what it states in the law of just like eating unclean animals, or do you think that is also extended into what our modern understanding of being unclean is? So, for instance, like drinking energy drinks, we know there's chemicals in there that are corrosive to your body. So would that law extend to now what our modern understanding of what unclean is, or is it specifically just for what is stated in the law?
Have you seen Orthodox Jews and what they eat? The average Orthodox Jew has got to lose some weight. With latkes and cholent and I'm glad that Torah is not all encompassing. That means, I mean, some people have taught that smoking is prohibited in the Torah. There's rabbis who've taught this. Why? Oh, because it's unhealthy for you. It doesn't work like that. What's prohibited is what's mentioned. And this applies also for rabbinic literature. For something to be prohibited rabbinically, it has to be literally what that rabbi prohibited. You can't apply, for example, I don't know if you're Jewish, but the average person, whenever they don't like you doing something on Shabbat, they'll call it like uvdin dechol, like, oh, this isn't Shabbistic. you shouldn't do this on the Sabbath. But the only thing they're saying is that they don't like doing that on the Sabbath, right?
Sure.
You shouldn't have a ponytail. There's nowhere in Judaism that says you can have a ponytail. What they're basically saying is that I don't like you having a ponytail. But before they say that, they'll say Judaism teaches. So no, pork is delicious. I get hungry just thinking about it. And I haven't had pork in 25 years. The reason we don't eat it is because the Torah says not to eat it, not because it's unhealthy. The Torah never brings down the issue of health on whether something is allowed or not, in terms of things that are eaten. Yeah.
I think pork is your jar of honey, right? You know that.
I don't like it that much. There's other things that I like.
You know the story, the Midrash about King Solomon, with the special honey that was his favorite and the most precious in the world. And when he went on the trip, he split it into 3 jars and gave it to 3 people to guard with their life. And then when he comes back, they bring him back. One of them has an empty jar because he ate it all. One has a fully sealed jar, and one has an open jar. And he says the one who ate it all, he said, take his head off. And then he gave the one who gave him the fully sealed jar, he gave him a gold coin. And the one who gave him a half filled, or jar that's open with few spoons missing, he gave him a bag of coins. And the one who gave him a sealed jar goes how come what is that? I gave you the one that's fully sealed just like you gave me. And this guy opened it and you rewarded him more. And it says, well, yeah, because he actually tasted it and knew how good it was, but he still cared about his mission enough to keep it, where you didn't even know that it was anything special. So to you, that's nothing. You just you didn't open it. So why do you care?
This is where they got the story of the farmer's daughter, for sure. The story with the glitter. Come on, man. And this whole jar of honey, it was referring to the woman, his black girlfriend in Song of Solomon. Her name was Honey, by the way. Okay, fine.
Well, yeah, I understand.
I am black and I am comely. Come on. You guys know, right? It's talking about a black woman that black Hebrew Israelites think it's talking about Solomon himself, but they don't read the whole thing in context. Yeah, that's his black girlfriend, Honey. All right.
Because you like pork and you want it, but you don't eat it, then your reward is much bigger than someone who doesn't care about pork.
Well, from that perspective, don't you wish you're homosexual? Yeah, but not act on it.
I got enough of my own issues. I don't need extra.
It kind of goes along with virtue, essentially. So someone who has the ability to do harm to others but doesn't do it is far more virtuous than someone who doesn't have that ability and then doesn't do harm, right? So it's the resistance of the action, not the inability to do it.
I want to hear a Muslim come on here and say that pork is delicious, but I don't eat it because God says not to do it. I bet they won't do it. Because they're saying right now, haram, haram, haram. It just shows their mindset. It's like they're. It's like that guy
about being homosexual.
I'm not gay no more. I love women's. It's like, come on, man. He was clearly an actor, because we know he was still gay, right? But God doesn't want you to lie. Okay, if you like something, say, I like pork. I don't eat it because I believe in the word of God. Right? But don't say pork is disgusting, poi, poi, poi. Right?
No, Rabbi, you're right. I'm coming up on a year without eating it, and I understand it's hard. Bacon, it was so
I personally
good.
don't like pork.
All right. Okay, no, I get it. Turkey
bacon.
It's preference.
There's a beef bacon, right? You don't have to have pork bacon. There's beef bacon that tastes just as good.
There's nothing like bacon. I'm telling you.
There was a Jewish deli that was down the street from me. They called it schmaken, and it was beef bacon, and they covered it in brown sugar. It was the most delicious thing I've ever had.
No, but bacon on an animal is a cut. It's a belly, right? So it's like a pork belly gives you pork bacon, but a belly of a cow that has fat on it can be prepared in an identical way, and it's delicious. There's no reason that
I've never seen it.
It's really good. It's really good.
I have to see it. I've never seen.
All right, so Rebecca in the comment is calling me an Islamophobe. I am not an Islamophobe. Okay, everybody knows that I consider Islam as an alternative to Judaism. Meaning, if you can't become Jewish, become Christian or Muslim. Okay, I mean, while most people here who don't have the guts to tell Muslims that their religion is inferior to Judaism, behind their back talk crap as much. I mean, I don't talk behind their back anything, right? I mean, I dialogue with them and I respect them as religious people. But just know that the people on TikTok who act like they're the actual friends of Muslims are the ones, if they're Jewish, talking the most crap about them, because when you don't bother to correct someone, what you end up doing is infantilizing them, saying, I'm not offering them Judaism because they can't hop, like they don't understand, their brain is not sophisticated enough. Let them keep their little primitive religion and Judaism is for us. That's demeaning, okay? When they see a Jewish person say, you know what, there's no difference between me and you, but just the religion that we practice. That builds respect, not resentment. And this is why most people dislike Jews, or at least one of the reasons.
I have a question kind of pertaining to my previous one, to like the literalism of the law.
Yeah.
Could you think that could bring up, because especially now with the exponential growth in invention and technology, that taking a hyper literalist version of the law is going to make it outdated, in that there's so many things that are kind of coming into existence, like AI being one of them and stuff, where if you only like take this literal definition of the law and don't apply it on a wider perspective to these other things, then it kind of is going to make the law outdated in a sense.
So we have an oral law that doesn't change, by the way, either, but it gives us a bit more leeway. The Torah is set in stone, including the oral law. There's different ways to understand a concept. Is there anything in particular that you're referring to?
Well, I kind of like was bridging off of the pork thing, because I do on occasion, like, to be honest, it's not that hard for me, because the only pork I like is essentially bacon. But when I kind of interpret it as I'm trying to keep my body clean of anything that I view as unclean, it's not just specifically pork, I'm going to sometimes fail. Like I mentioned energy drinks. I try to avoid drinking energy drinks, but sometimes I'm just going to drink an energy drink. Like,
enjoy yourself.
So when I'm taking this kind of a little bit more broad interpretation of the law and kind of apply it on a broader sense, that's why I bridged off of the pork one. Like, I don't take it specifically as pork, but more of like, anything that I'm find scientific evidence to support that it's unclean for my body, I'm to try to avoid.
So some rabbis agree with you, by the way. Most people don't know that gelatin, especially in the Sephardic world, is accepted. And I'm not talking about fish gelatin, like made by fish bones, made from actual pork bones. Because the understanding is that at that point, once it's gone through such a change that it's no longer considered pork, mainly because it loses the flavor of pork. The standard, if something is something in Judaism, according to Jewish law, is if there's a taste, which is I never understood. How can you have kosher bacon if it tastes like pork, if the definition of what classifies something as pork is if it tastes like pork, like the tam, they call it.
Interesting.
Isn't that from the 168 thing, right? Could they derive it from the 168?
Right. So 160, which is batul b'shishim, only applies b'diavad. That means after the fact, if like a little bit of milk fell in your big chillin pot, after the fact, I mean, not that you actually sprayed it in there, right? Because then it wouldn't be allowed, but just so you wouldn't have what's called like a hefsed meruba that you have to throw the whole thing away, then it's allowed. But it shouldn't be done at the outset. But yes, from that perspective, I mean, that would apply also, but just after the fact. So 160, if anything, like doesn't disqualify it.
Well, he really asked what will make it unhealthy. What got me off of it, watching what a pig will eat, I was just like, nah. It made it easier watching what a pig will really eat, but it shows you it can't be healthy for you.
Yeah. Right, and they don't sweat either, which kind of brings up another issue, because they're not only eating that, but their body isn't as effectively expunging the stuff that they're eating. So it's kind of doubling.
Chicken eat crap also. I'm telling you, it's white women.
Yeah, chicken. Chicken isn't recommended. Yeah, chicken can cause inflammation too. Chicken isn't.
I grew up on the farm. I raised chicken. You should see what chickens eat. They'll eat anything.
They eat anything. Yeah, they eat anything.
They'll eat dead chicken.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
should
I
eat
studied a
seafood.
carnivore. I studied a carnivore diet a lot. Ruminant meats are really what you should stick to,
I eat mostly beef.
which are mostly kosher.
This is, by the way, this is the diet that I keep.
The carnivore diet.
Yep.
I
I
did that
want
for
to
a little
start,
while.
but I'm hearing they say you should start with. I want to include like fats because they say you lose too much
Start
too
slow.
quickly.
Start
Yeah,
slow because
exactly. Yeah,
it's gonna
exactly.
wreck your gut for months if you don't start slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you kind of start with a like a
I was
keto kind of centered diet and don't cut out all other things, that helped me kind of bridge into it.
no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do strict carnivore because I've been eating really
No, I'm saying
healthy.
start with keto because it kind of bridges you into the like it helps your gut not be so jarred by just going
Yeah.
straight to me.
Eliminate things slowly because if you just go 100% from eating bunch of like plants and grains and switch 100% to meat only,
Mhm.
you're gonna be on the toilet for 3 months straight.
Yeah, I want to incorporate
Orange.
fruit. I do want to incorporate fruit. I really do because I hear a lot of good things about fruit.
Yeah, no, like the natural sugars are the really
Yeah,
only sugars I try to eat. Like I've cut most grains out of my diet too because I just
yeah, but
notice I
anyway,
crash after I eat grains.
but anyway,
All
I don't
right.
even
So this
know
shows that we
actually.
talk about everything on this show.
Literally.
Next, guys. Let's keep it going. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Islamophobe is leading the way here.
Oh my goodness.
So welcome, Set Apart. Like, what's your story?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
So I used to be a Christian for a long time. I'm actually a minister's daughter. So I grew up in the high church with
Where?
the smells and the bells in New Zealand. I'm a Kiwi.
Okay.
And I was in that for many years. And then I married my husband, and his father is a AOG pastor. So we were in the Assembly of God for years as well, but we never quite fit in. No matter what we did, we just sort of something wasn't right. And then so we just left the church. We left the church and we started doing our own research and really searching the scriptures. And we realized that a lot of the things that they were doing in these churches didn't line up, particularly Easter and Christmas, and these things were not biblical. So that's really where it began. And then we sort of started looking at the Torah, and we looked at what the Messiah said about how he did not come to abolish the Torah, but to fulfill. So yeah, we try to keep the feast days, and we keep the Sabbath on Friday evening to Saturday evening, and that's really where we're at the moment.
I think one advantage that Christians have in coming into religion in general is sola scriptura. That keeps them on track and it keeps them progressing. The problem with religions like Islam is that right when you see some sort of practice, some sort of inaccuracy, then all they have to do is deify some later text to validate it. Imagine if Christianity, the church fathers, wrote a whole treatise that says, no, Easter's, like rabbits and Easter egg hunts are actually part of the religion. So it's not a contradiction to the text because this later book justifies it. This is why people don't leave Islam and people grow out of Christianity because they're able to see the errors and the inconsistencies in certain practices. But if for some reason you deify your teachers, then you're stuck there forever. Because every time you catch them in one thing, they'll pull out their holy eraser and just say it wasn't even a contradiction to begin with, because I just wrote it in this other book.
Yeah.
This is why I consider Christianity closer to Judaism, because it actually holds truth as a value in the vast majority of cases. I'm sure there's crappy Muslims and beautiful, or like crappy Christians and beautiful Muslims, right? So sometimes it's better to have less and have more, because I know it's very hard for someone who, for example, grew up Hasidic, grew up thinking, like, let's say the Tanya is divinely inspired, was given a Mount Sinai also. It's hard to teach someone otherwise. I mean, if that's how you grew. But if from an
Yeah.
early age you said that the text in the Bible is king,
Yeah.
then if you do stray, you're not going to stray too far.
True. That's a good point, actually.
But anyways, so where are you now? You're a Messianic Jew?
I don't know what I am. I don't really have a label. I've been researching the Nazarene, and I found them to be quite interesting. They
You
believed
have to get
in
the ball rolling. I mean, you have to join a group already. I mean, for the sake of your kids and your family. All right.
join a group.
Yes. I mean, join any group. You have to
What
align
if what
yourself with a group, because making this world a better place is a team effort. And I say that to Christians, Muslims, and Jewish people. There is no point of being religious if you're going to be alone. No point of just like being up on some theological mountain, just worshiping God on it. It makes not, there's people who are destroying this planet, atheists, people misrepresenting religion, and they need good people like you in there pacifying the whole situation, throwing a wrench into their whole scheme. And you could only do that if you're physically invested in your community.
Right. But why would I go to a church or a denomination that teaches against the scripture? Like they're not true to the scriptures.
never
They
gonna
sort of pick
find-
and choose.
I'm telling you right now, you're never going to find, never, a church, a synagogue, or a mosque that you agree with 100%. If you agree with a group of people or a person 60 or 70% of the time, I consider that a colleague.
Really?
Yes. Don't nitpick, because the Torah, and specifically the New Testament, is ambiguous enough that there could be a way to justify things in different ways that you may not be convinced of, right? But by definition, the atheist will win, because they're a lot more united than you are with other religious people.
Right.
Yeah.
They're your biggest enemies, not Christians. I mean, even Assemblies of God people. Just go there as a power move. Walk into your church, and they're like, "Oh, welcome back. I thought you didn't like this place." And you could say, "I don't have to agree 100% to be able to appreciate you people as the body of Christ." Now I'm here like encouraging people to become Christian, right? I mean, they're friends, and for the sake of your kids, I don't know if you have kids, but it's a shame.
Yeah, I do. I have 4.
Yeah, they're going to end up growing up without friends, without a place to pray, without a community behind them. It's better to leave them in a church that you disagree mainly with than to give them nothing, because what you're going to end up doing is drawing them to, or pushing them to, atheism.
Yeah,
Really?
Robert, that's a good point, because that's actually my situation. I was raised Christian, and my church, we did a lot of I know it sounds redundant now, but we did a lot of Easter egg hunts, things like that with my family, because it was like a family type church, and so that helped build a bond. So I feel like that is important. But now that I'm not in that faith, it is a little weird with my family now, but I'm still glad for that relationship then.
Okay, so someone in the comment is saying that this rabbi is pro the Trinity. This, again, is called first stage thinking. Only because I'm able to see some good in Christianity, doesn't mean that I endorse every Christian teaching. Just like I'm sure this lady finds beautiful things in Judaism, but that doesn't mean she endorses everything Jews believe. So the average decent person could walk and chew gum at the same time. I guess you can if you're a Muslim, right? Because it's our way. I think in terms of cult mentality, Muslims freaking take the cake. Okay, I mean, they won't come up here and even say what they feel. They're like, "I've always hated pork," and it's not true. I mean, there's pictures of them, slap your mama. Remember? It's all BS, guys. Keep it real. First, tell the truth, then give your opinion. There's no point of even being religious if you're not first going to be honest, right? I mean, because then why are you following God to begin with? I mean, it's not even sincere. You're just doing it because you wanted to, I don't know, date a girl with a burqa on.
Just going back to what you said about joining a community. The problem is, now that I'm understanding the scriptures a bit more, if I was to go walk back into a church, and they're participating in these pagan ways, I would feel like I was betraying Hashem. You know what I mean?
Here, can you give me an example of something that's pagan that's done in the church?
I'm really struggling. This may sound really weird, but I'm struggling with the image of the cross.
Okay, so let's take that alone. And I'm not a Christian, but what's necessarily pagan about it?
Well, from what I understand, it goes back to the Egyptian. It's an ancient Egyptian symbol for eternal life, I think.
Yeah, wasn't Jesus crucified on a cross?
Well, that's open to debate. I mean,
Yeah, but you're not going to a Catholic church, right? I mean, it's only Catholics that have the crucifix. The average Christian has a cross to represent the cross, or a fish to represent. I want to make you a better Christian, okay? I mean, I'd for sure rather have you as a Christian than an atheist, okay?
yeah.
You know, but I think what you may be considering an idol is technically not an idol according to Judaism. Having an image of a cross is not necessarily
I'll give you
an idol.
another one.
Yeah.
I'll give you another one. The Trinity. I can't accept the Trinity anymore.
Okay. All right. I'm not endorsing the Trinity, but I think that you should be able to put that aside and, you know, hang around with a bunch of other like-minded individuals who, I mean, Christianity is more than the Trinity, by the way. All the ethics, you know, being Jesus-like, now what does that have to do with how you view the complexity, the supposed complexity of the Godhead? I mean, now what does that, you know, would it change your behavior anyway if you believed God was two, one? I mean, like.
Yeah, I think it would, because for them to say that there are that God is three persons in one, to me that's absolute blasphemy. I cannot accept that. And if they're going on like, saying these things, does the New Testament say that? No, it doesn't. It doesn't say that.
Okay, so in 1 John chapter 5, verse 7, it says, there's three that bear witness in heaven. I believe the Father, the Word, and the Holy Spirit. And these three are one. I mean, look it up.
Yeah, but that verse, that verse was actually
no, I'm not saying that I believe that. No,
Yeah.
I know that it could be understood in different ways, but by the simple fact that it could be understood in different ways, shouldn't that mean that you should give the people a pass?
No, because I believe that verse was actually it wasn't in the original manuscripts at all. It was added in.
No, I get it. But being that it could be understood a different way, the average person probably doesn't know that. I'm familiar that it appears in the King James, it doesn't appear in the NIV. I went to seminary as a Christian. I was ordained as a pastor before I dropped Christianity, moved to Israel, and became a rabbi. However, being that you could understand it in different ways, and there's many instances in the New Testament that does allude to the fact that Jesus might be God, right? The Alpha and the Omega speaking at the end happens to be Jesus. Wouldn't you give that person a pass, assuming that it's an ambiguous notion? I believe you're right? But that doesn't mean that you have the right to call them pagan. I mean, actual pagans have to be put to death.
I wouldn't call them pagan. I would definitely not call them pagan, but I believe it to be pagan.
Okay, yeah, but
I mean, shouldn't you be convincing me that I should be a Jew?
No, I want you to be Jewish.
Yeah, I'm also confused. Why are we defending Christianity today?
No, it's because I'm trying to be honest about this. Okay, I don't see her converting to Judaism tomorrow. Right now, she doesn't have a community. It benefits her and her family, all right, to run to the closest ethical institution near her, and that's not a synagogue. So if I cared about her, I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. I'm not just going to destroy Christianity to put her in a worse situation. The last thing you want to do is be an Orthodox Jew in New Zealand. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. Okay? You know,
What?
Rabbi, look at Courtney's comment.
What made you leave Christianity and become a rabbi?
Okay, well, just let me respond to Courtney's comment here. Here, check out Courtney. Her name is Biblical Apologetics. I mean, you probably know who she is. She's pretty famous. I'm not a Christian again, but I separate the world between the decent and the indecent. And it only helps my cause if your kids remain religious. And that's only going to happen if you have some religious body you belong to. Now, why did I leave Christianity? Because I felt that the bulk of what exists in Christianity was put together from developed rabbinical ideas that don't appear in the Torah literally, like the notion of the Messiah, heaven and hell, right? Satan as some sort of adversary towards God. All these things don't appear in the Jewish Bible. So it's hard for me to believe that now God is going to thrust that on me and force me to believe this later book, and thus is going to condemn me to hell for not, submitting to this human sacrifice. It just sounds like it was written by a different author. However, I'm able to see the good in Christians.
But where do you think if you are practicing Judaism? What is your belief about where would a Christian go when they die? Like,
all I know about a supposed afterlife is that God will write you in a book, whatever that means. If you keep his commandments, God will take care of you in this life and most likely in the next, right? I believe in the next, although the Torah doesn't mention one, just because for God to be a just God, there has to be more. There's too many good people who suffer unjustly on this planet today, and a lot of crappy people who get away with a lot, right? Nancy Pelosi. So this is why
that's real life. That's real life what you just said.
I think that God's going to reward all good people. And I think that God separates the world between decent people and indecent people, not between Jews, Gentiles, and Muslims. However, if you are equipped and are able to articulate where your values actually come from, which is what Jews walk around with, that's our Torah. It's been appropriated by Christians and Muslims, right? They mention our ethical laws, but the laws appear in our book. They just add narrative and metaphysics, essentially. Stick with the original, and then you'd be in the best position at the end than just building your whole existence on concepts that didn't even appear in the beginning, i.e. our Bible.
But if I'm breaking the first two commandments by following Yeshua, wouldn't that disqualify me?
Because I don't believe that you're breaking. I don't believe that people who follow Yeshua as their Messiah, with divine qualities or not, are committing idolatry. I believe it's foolish and silly. However, that doesn't mean I believe it's idolatrous or heretical, because those are big words in Judaism. Idolatrous means that you essentially have to be put to death. I don't think God wants to put Messianic Jews to death.
But if you think it's foolish and silly, why would you encourage me to continue in that?
I'll tell you. My father was the victim of a home invasion, like, I don't even know, 12 years ago, like probably more. So he always knew that I was religiously inclined. Anyone in my family wants religious answers, they call me, so he told me that he wants to come close to God because he's suffering with depression and he can't sleep, and he's almost becoming suicidal. So what did I tell him? Go to your local synagogue? Of course not. He'd kill himself. Obviously, because Jews are not, as they exist today, are not equipped to accept newcomers. I told him, go to your local synagogue. I told him, go to your local church. And he's been going ever since. And he's a better man for it. So I have to be pragmatic. If I'm claiming to be ethical, a Muslim wouldn't care if you don't have another house of worship to go to. If your kids have friends or girls to date of their same ethical community, they don't care. Yeah. They're saying it's better to be alone and dead than to be a Trinitarian. Right. I don't separate the world like that. In life, the choice is typically not between what's utopian and what's horrific, but between what's good and what's better. Okay, I think Judaism is better, but Christianity is good. Yeah.
But I feel like if there's absolute truths, you can't sort of sit on the fence about things and say, oh, well, the Christians, as long as they're following the commandments, then, God will look favorably on them.
I want people to remain Christian, by the way. However, I don't think you have a choice right now. If you want to live an idealistic existence and just start keeping kosher, you're going to be alone, and your kids are going to be alone, and they're going to be atheists. And they're going to end up resenting you for it, for taking away all they had, all their friends, right? Their whole ethical communal backbone. This is why that when elephants play, the grass suffers. When parents make these religious decisions for their whole family, it's typically their family that suffers, right? Or that one person in the family who's a freaking fanatic, right? And they drag their whole family, they move them across the country, right, to nothing. They don't give that family an alternative to what they just destroyed. I think, man, we have to be pragmatic about these things.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are other Messianic Jews
All right, so pick up
in the area that I live in.
and
Like,
move towards it. We're not going to
what's that?
to a Messianic synagogue right away then. I mean, start, integrating into that community. Or you could save your money and move to Brooklyn or to some Orthodox community and pursue a conversion. But I don't think that is an option right now.
No. I mean, I'm interested in Judaism, but I still really believe in the Messiah, so I'm kind of torn. I can't not believe in him
Okay.
because I think his teaching is just so profound, and I don't see how it couldn't have come from
So imagine if I viewed you.
divine thought.
So imagine that I viewed you how you viewed other Christians. Just because I happen to disagree with you. I'm able to have this dialogue with you because I know, even though I'm pretty convinced that you're wrong, I still think that you're good. But you can't find any redeemable quality with other Christians.
I can, of course I can, and I don't judge them, but I do judge their theology, which is not compatible with
only aspects of their theology. Aspects of their theology. These Christians walk around with the Bible under their arm. They're just mistaken or have a different interpretation than you do on certain verses, and that's never going to change. If you went to my synagogue, you would disagree with me on a handful of things, and that'd be fine. Because there's no. This is why an oral law is very important. A Sanhedrin is important. A group of scholars who are going to build consensus to in some way explain away ambiguous notions in the Bible, saying this is how we're going to understand it. Because if everyone was meant to understand their Bible on their own in the Jewish world, no one would be able to marry someone else. I think keeping kosher was like this. People will be celebrating the Sabbath on Tuesday, which is what the lunar Sabbath does nowadays, right? That's why God told us in Deuteronomy chapter 17 that in all areas of disputes, we shall go to the place that God will choose. He told us to go to the Sanhedrin, and they will give you the final law. That's it. Because there are ambiguous notions in the Bible.
Right. But like you were referring earlier to the oral tradition, the oral law, and you were saying that they were adding on things that were not even scriptural.
Oh no, I never said that. I mean, I believe in the oral.
Oh, sorry. No, but you were talking about this Shabbat and how people were adding rules that were not actually found in the Tanakh.
Yeah,
in the Torah.
The Tanakh allowed for it because it allowed for judges. I mean, for example, nowhere in the Torah does it tell us how to establish months. It never says to look towards the moon. I mean, it actually mentions the stars, the moons, but the sun. It never specifically says that the way we spot the new moon or we establish a month is by spotting a new moon. It doesn't say that. It may appear in the writings in the prophets, but that's much, much later. That means that the court developed this. Nowhere in the Torah does it tell us what to do or what not to do on the Sabbath outside of kindling a fire and picking up sticks. The court decided that there has to be 39 categories of prohibited labor because God tells us that there's a death penalty attached to the Sabbath. There has to be a way to keep it, right? So this court always existed in the Jewish people. Heck, even in the New Testament, they took Jesus where? To the Sanhedrin because they sit in Moses' seat. We have to do as they tell us to do. We just don't emulate their wicked behavior. Fine, it's a thing. We need consensus in order to move forward because there are ambiguous statements in the Torah that justify two different practices.
Right.
All right. Anyways, we're moving forward.
Okay.
Welcome, Mattis. Mattis Kazar. I don't know. This truncates the words here. I guess. All right. There we go.
It's Mateo. All right. came in much earlier. Wait, do I have a echo?
No.
Okay. I came in much earlier, so if you don't want to change the conversation, I understand. But the atheism caused the Holocaust thing was that's where I came in. If you want to go back to that,
Sure. Okay, that was a bit simplistic. That atheism called the Holocaust. It was essentially socialism, i.e., democratic socialism, communism, that caused that event. The vast majority of Jews were responsible for the Russian Revolution. That means the murdering of over 20 million ethnic Russians, and every other movement from the Chinese Revolution, which happened afterwards. But it shows how influential left-wing atheistical Jews were. Munich fell under the control of the Jewish communists. This is stuff, it makes you sound like white supremacists, but this is historical. And there's rabbis like Rabbi Mizrahi who teaches the same thing, Rabbi Hanan Wasserman who died
literally
during the
white
Holocaust.
supremacist talking points.
The what?
This is literally white supremacist talking points. But no, I get you. So you're saying the Germans?
I
So you're saying
completely
the
agree.
Germans had, huh?
I completely agree. They're white supremacist talking points, but it appears written in the books of many Jewish historians. From Paul Johnson, he's not Jewish, but he's respected in the Jewish world. Burl Wine. This is a common thing. It's now, yes, religious Jews weren't communists, but we're not talking about the religious Jews. We're talking about.
So you're saying the Germans had a
Trotsky.
the Germans had a rational fear, is what you're saying?
No, I don't think it was proper to kill children or anything like that. But the idea that
the Jews were ruining Germany was real.
I'm sorry, the what?
The idea of Jews ruining Germany was a real
world.
concern.
It was called the Red Scare. Well, the Red Scare in the 20s.
Red Scare was a lot later.
No, it was in the 20s.
No, the Red Scare.
In the 20s.
Okay, no, yeah.
Yeah, it began with in the Little Orphan Alley, and I think that was also filmed in the 30s.
Okay. The movie?
There was someone who ran in, a communist, because everyone was scared that everyone was going to go red.
Yeah, I've seen those.
So it's.
I remember those ads.
It was predominantly or disproportionately represented by Jewish people, unfortunately, not religious Jews. It's not the vast majority of Jews today.
I won't deny at all that there were many Jews in leadership positions. But if you look at the numbers of communists worldwide throughout the entire period, the entire decade, those are Christians. Atheists,
they weren't religious
atheistic
Christians.
Christians.
By definition, they had to be atheists.
Potato.
Right. Well, they were atheists, but not in leadership. In leadership positions, they were predominantly Jewish. Leadership positions, from Bela Kun, Rosa Luxemburg, Trotsky, Stalin is half Jewish, right?
Luxemburg never ruled shit.
All right, no, I'm just saying, in terms of leadership, and this is why the main reason the Germans disliked the Jews. The main reason, this is what he writes in Mein Kampf, by the way, because they were the founders of social democracy, and they were heavily involved in the white flesh trade, in pornography. These are just what they're involved in today, right? The vast majority of left-wing Jews do not promote Torah values, right? So we shouldn't just make it seem, yes, the mustache man was a racist. Americans were racist back then also. Our military wasn't desegregated until much later. So I'm just trying to be honest about this. Secular Jews have always hurt religious Jews more than Christians ever hurt religious Jews.
So, okay. So if they had stayed to Torah values and not developed all of the ills of the modern society, the Holocaust wouldn't have happened.
Correct.
Okay. As you said, this is literally white supremacist talking points.
That it's hard.
I've talked with Ruben about this many times.
No, I know.
But I think, Matt, you gotta agree that that's not the only one. I disagree that that's the only reason. I think the major reason for Holocaust is also Britain. The British banning Jews from moving anywhere, it's specifically into Palestine at the time, was a major cause, because that's where where the Nazis initially wanted to move. They didn't want to just go and kill everybody. They wanted to move them out of Germany. And the British specifically prevented them from moving.
Say like mustache people or
something.
Okay, but you know what I mean.
I just call him Shepelgruber. That's his original last name.
Yeah.
No, but I'm pretty sure. I don't know what if TikTok was smart. Unalive is already enough to get you kicked off.
I know, right? I'm starting to think the whole filter thing's not real. Not real. Like
So, no, I don't feel like a thug
unalive,
anymore.
rape. Yeah,
I'm gonna
no.
rob someone. I'm like, I'm gonna unalive you if you don't give me your money.
Yeah, no. It's starting to bleed out into actual conversation.
Yeah, I actually like the British, and I think the British Empire has been one of the greatest forces for good on this planet.
Yeah,
Their
I think
spreading of
Ruben's
Victorian
point.
values are amazing. Nowadays, they're ethically, socially useless, right?
Yeah.
But the vision of from India, it's not a coincidence that all former British colonies are all democracies nowadays.
I mean, I disagree with you on that also. The whole reason the Israeli-Palestinian conflict exists is because of the British Empire.
That's a
Wait.
big topic. Okay.
So this was thrust upon the British because the British displaced the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so they had to do something, and they did. Heck, with the League of Nations, that when it was given to the League of Nations, it was presented to them under the Balfour Declaration. They gave Jews a piece of land. Now, yes, they threw them to the wolves. What were they?
No, that's
They
not
basically
exactly
just
the
left and said,
history.
"Hey, go at it."
They literally went at the same time to both groups, and they promoted the Arab independence and they promoted Jewish independence at the same time to invalidate the Ottoman Empire and to go against them. That was the whole
The
reason.
Ottomans
Like
were
the
already
Lawrence
good.
of Arabia was there for the same reason.
Wait, hold on. There was no Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, there was no Ottoman Empire. That was a big thing already.
No, we're talking about the World War I. This is when the whole conflict started.
When did we go back to World War One?
Yeah. We're talking about British creating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Okay.
Under the Ottomans, it was all Palestine. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, but there was
And
Arab
Britain-
nationalists.
And the Britain wanted to get rid of the Ottoman Empire. That was their enemy there. And the Britain went and they influenced both groups at the same time. They promoted Jews to immigrate to Palestine, and they gave them money to do so. Hold on. Come on. The history is there. They literally gave them money to do so under the premise of Balfour Declaration, to give them independence there to be fighting against Ottomans. In parallel, they did same thing with the Arabs, and they promoted Pan-Arabism and the Arab revival to go against Ottoman Empire. It was two groups promising same thing to both groups, and then once the war was over, they started supporting whoever had the least power. Who had the least power in the Middle East at the time was Jews. So what do British always do? They pick whoever has the least power, they put him in charge so that they can control the masses, because the people least in power will be dependent on the empire and will do anything to get their support. It's the same thing U.S. did in Iraq, right?
It makes sense.
Jordan, Iraq, Syria, all these places were established essentially by the British. Right. This idea that the Jews had a little sliver of land that they couldn't defend. Like, how could they put them in power? And the Jews were massacring the British also.
You're talking about after World War II. I'm talking about way before that.
Oh, I don't know what happened. All right, yeah.
No,
I'm not going to say about before. I don't know.
The same thing happened in Rwanda with the Hutu and the Tutsis.
They did same thing everywhere. British did same thing. What happened with India and Pakistan? It's everywhere. They did same thing everywhere.
Right, the little
so that's after the fact.
Whatever.
But when they couldn't handle, for sure, the last thing the British ever wanted was to take control of that part of the world, i.e., the Middle East. All right.
By the way, U.S. does same thing. U.S. goes take the territory and then and puts whoever has the least support in control, so that they will be dependent on U.S. for the support.
It's a strategy that works.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, guys, on that note, let's go ahead and just end on this high note before before I end up
cause of the Holocaust. Okay.
Yeah. See, now I can't upload this video to YouTube. There's things that knock it out. If someone comes here and calls me a prod boy or something, I can't put it up on YouTube. I have to go in and splice, and I don't got time for that.
Okay, I said I was sorry about that.
You can be proud man.
Oh, that was you? Or what?
Yeah, no, I changed my name. That was me.
Yeah, but of what? Like of the prod boy thing?
Yeah.
No, there's no secret. I mean, it was no secret.
No,
I
I
was the
think
vice president, of like at least like the South Florida chapter.
no, I'm pretty sure I'm the most recent person to come on your live and shout at you about that, though. That was
Yeah,
me.
like, I don't hide it. I mean, it's not like they're exposing something. I mean, I'm not involved anymore, but
You
I'm
put up
I'm
more
proud of my
videos.
You grew up, Asher, and you became a proud man, right?
I don't.
Nice
It was
one.
Soldier Boy is still Soldier Boy.
What is a proud boy? What is that?
Oh boy,
Uh,
that conversation.
I'm a right winger who like physically targets groups like BLM and Antifa for violence.
I would want to see that. I need a video of that.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I have tons of videos. I had a channel called proudboy.tv, but I took it down. But I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you
put it
only
up.
put one video up on Discord, and then you took it down.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah.
Oh, you're Mateo. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, I'm a bad man.
Mateo became Khazarian.
yeah. Yeah.
Rabbi?
By the way, Arthur,
Yes.
sorry, 1 second. You know you were on the live before you started yours, where like Andre and like a couple Israelis were just
Oh
yelling at you
god.
without letting you talk. And as soon as you left, they brought the guy who started pushing the Khazarian conspiracy theory, and they gave him all the
Yeah.
platform.
He went
talking about
on
me?
and on and on, and
After you
no,
left,
like after you left.
Oh, you were on that live?
I came in at the end.
You know, I went there to dialogue, and the first thing. Well done. I just got a phone call. Well, anyways, I went on this platform to dialogue, like I do. I mean, I don't attack everyone, but when they don't want to debate me, they're like, "You're a fake rabbi. You're a fake." You know, guys,
Yeah.
you don't have to call me rabbi. I mean, I have smicha, and even if I didn't have the title rabbi, I think the average person, after hearing my stuff, knows that I could defeat almost any rabbi on a debate. Yeah, I mean, I at least challenge
That's
them.
not how we rank rabbis.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the way things typically pan out. And all they do is just insult. You know, I mean, it shows that they're scared to have me open my mouth about anything intelligent. Fine. Yes. I'm that much of a bad.
But the point is they were yelling at you as if you're some kind of bad guy. But then after you left, they platformed the guy pushing the Khazarian conspiracy theory.
They platformed Andrea.
Yeah. No, she was there too. She was there too, and he went all about how. What?
It's just, disgusting stuff.
Yeah.
All right. I always like guys who have the confidence to go up on TikTok without a shirt on first.
Shalom. How we doing?
Oh my goodness.
All right. You sound Jewish.
Yeah,
apart even from your name being Neshama.
We've talked before, a long time ago, though.
Oh, Google's everywhere.
I mean, there's girls named Neshama also, by the way. I mean, it's not just Nechama, you know, so it's kind of a catfish. And we have like a catfish female here and a guy without a shirt. El Guru, dímelo cantando.
What's going on, brother? Hey, listen, hey, listen, man. I've been following you for a while, and I love what you do on your platform, man. I really do, man. You know, you really put a lot of these people to shame, brother. You know. No, man. My parents are Haitian and Dominican. Haitiano.
Diablo, plátano. Johnny Ventura es su caballo. That's what's up.
Yeah, man. So let me ask you, man. I know some of your story. I know that you converted. You used to be Christian and you converted into Judaism, right?
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, my story is that at the age of 14, I found out that the Earth wasn't 6,000 or 7,000 years old, the way that the Old Testament claims that it is. Mm-hmm. And from that moment on, I became an apostate, and then I eventually became an atheist. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So I'm an apostate atheist for about 30 years now, brother.
Okay.
And I love to talk to Christian people. I love to talk to Islam people that are devoted to the faith of Islam. Most people confuse me as a person that is part of the faith. I wonder why that is, but
well, let me tell you that according to Orthodox Judaism, You wouldn't be considered an apostate by not thinking the world was created in 6 days and God resting on the seventh. There's many Orthodox Jews who believe that. They believe that it's not 6 days of creation, but 6 instances. And every one of those instances could have been, like a billion years. This is taught by Gerald Schroeder. He taught in the yeshiva I learned in. He was like an MIT, like physicist who became religious and now teaches Judaism from a scientific perspective. I'm a literalist. I believe in 6 days in creation and a 7th day of rest, but I admit that I believe that in faith. Just because, I believe it in faith. I'm not trying to convince you of it, right? I think the Torah itself is really the word of God, not necessarily the narrative around it. But I think you should convert to Judaism, but you got to put a shirt on first.
Hey, let me ask you this: Who made the clothes, the first piece of clothing for Adam and Eve?
It says that I don't know if it's necessarily the first piece of clothing. It said they were naked, but the idea that I don't know. It could have got cold and they, sort of covered themselves up with some animal skin. But it says that God made clothing after they were naked. Yeah.
How did they forge metal?
I'm sorry?
How were they able to forge metal? Who taught them?
I don't debate the Bible from that perspective.
Gotcha.
That's the narrative. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that story was given to us on Mount Sinai. The only national revelation God ever gave to the Jewish people or to humanity was Torah from Mount Sinai. The instructions, the do's and don'ts that appear in what we call the Torah today. So what does it matter if you happen to disagree with the legend that we're taught that chronologically led up to us receiving the Torah? Who cares? From the Bible itself, I know you're taught that the book of Genesis was given on Mount Sinai and all that was written by God. The Torah doesn't really say that. Well, the Torah just says that the commandments are from God. So from a literal academic perspective, you should still be religious because you know that people who live life by this ethical standard live more fruitful, ethical, better lives than people who try to reinvent the wheel ethically every day. Just on that notion alone, that should allow you to pay tribute to where your ethics actually come from, which is the Bible and not any atheist out there.
Well, I think that you're assuming a little bit about what my perspective may be.
You said you're an atheist. Not agnostic. You said atheist.
I'm an atheist. Right.
Okay.
So I'm not convinced. I don't have any proof. Again.
So that makes you an agnostic, by the way. An atheist makes the claim there is no God, not I don't know.
No. I'm saying hardcore. There is no God. Straight up, there is no God. Straight up.
Okay. All right. So that's more of a religious stance when someone's saying, you know what? I can argue for the necessity of God in a hopeless world. So you're a lot more religious than I am.
Yeah, he's a believer. He's 100% believer.
You're a believer in atheistical pursuits, whatever that happens to be, like atheistical leaders.
Atheistical leaders? I'm sorry, I don't...
You're a believer in absence of God, right? Because you can't prove that there's no God, so you believe in it.
Well, you guys can't prove that this Jewish God does exist. Do you really think that?
But it's a balance, right? So we can't prove, so we believe, and you can't prove, and you believe. So we're at the same place.
Yeah. So all we have is evidence.
Let's see, was parted in half.
Hold on. All we have is
you
evidence.
really don't say God doesn't exist.
Hold on. All we have is evidence for both sides. We don't have proof. You don't have proof that he doesn't exist or exists, and we don't have proof either. All we have are good arguments. Again, the sea split in half is not part of the Torah. The Torah is the commandments within the Torah. So I said from that basis alone, these commandments actually making people better should at least get you as an atheist to put your kids in religious schools.
So Moses' claim to fame was not parting the Red Sea?
Nope.
Interesting.
No, his claim to fame is being the vessel that God used to give us his commandments. That's his claim to fame.
Right. So let me ask you this: if he wrote all 5 books, who finished he wrote his own death in the books, or who finished the books? Joshua, or
the last few verses?
He did write
nowhere in the
He
Torah,
did not write any of it.
Nowhere in the Torah does it say that Moses wrote the contents in the Torah. It doesn't say that. We believe that in tradition. According to the Talmud, according to the 13 principles of faith, the Torah says that, first of all, the Torah wasn't given to us on Mount Sinai. It began on Mount Sinai, and the transmission continued to the end of Deuteronomy. We didn't receive 5 books on Mount Sinai.
Who said that, brother?
What?
Yeah. By the way, Asher, I'm holding to the document hypothesis. I don't believe that any of it was from that period.
That's right.
I agree with
yeah.
that.
No, because you acknowledge that it doesn't harm the narrative at all. The documentary hypothesis doesn't harm the narrative of the Bible at all. I mean, it harms tradition for sure. But when you're arguing with an atheist, you can't argue tradition. You can only argue text. And the same thing with a Muslim. When you're arguing with a Muslim, you can't bring up the Talmud. You have to bring up the literal text to defend itself.
Don't go back
now,
onto
Muslims
that.
don't play by those rules, but whatever.
I started off as an atheist, so I have to resolve it in my own mind with that approach, right? I have to prove it to myself. So it's you know, it's not just that I have to prove it to somebody else. I have to approach it rationally from from reviewing any kind of inconsistency, and that's why I support the document hypothesis, but it doesn't affect my faith whatsoever that the law came from God.
So far, El Guru, I mean, it sounds like we're only giving you reasons to become religious. That means I would allow you in my synagogue with you even denying that the splitting of the sea happened.
Wait, say that again. What?
I would allow you into my synagogue and even convert you to Judaism, even though you weren't convinced that the splitting of the sea happened.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not trying to convince anyone that.
Yeah, you are, bro. Come on, man. I mean, you sound like a professional.
Here's the thing. You have to use special reasoning once you read Genesis. I mean, once you hear that a snake was talking to a lady, from that point on, you have to know.
Did you not just hear Reuben?
Any girls watching
Genesis,
I mean,
yeah.
testify to that story.
You know that Genesis is the latest book out of all of them. That was like the most, the latest one out of all of them, right? Okay, I don't care. I agree. Snakes do not talk. So what? How does it change anything?
And they never will. Okay? Snakes have never had vocal cords ever.
Okay, and they also didn't have arms and legs. They,
You know that it's.
Ooh, you're arguing against a position no one here holds, except maybe Asher a little bit.
No, what are you talking about? Don't throw me under the bus.
No, hold on. Listen, snakes. Not only snakes do not talk, they also don't have arms and legs.
Oy, oy, oy.
All right, hold on.
Did I say that they had arms and legs? Because I never said
Well,
that.
the Genesis does.
You said that.
He's making a point. Come on.
Yeah, it's just a point. We're not arguing
So
against
say,
you, bro.
like, there is scientific consensus that snakes did used to have arms and legs.
Yes, I mean,
So
Wait,
just
what?
wanna put
Right,
that
I've heard
in
of
there.
that.
That's kind of a bad
Well, my
argument to say,
point is-
oh, they don't have arms and legs. They still have the muscles to have them. They just don't have them anymore.
But my point is, in that story, the snake walked around. It wasn't crawling on the ground.
I think that's the point.
It talked, and then after this whole thing happened in the paradise, not on the earth, then the snake lost ability to walk and started crawling, and lost ability to speak or whatever else you want to do. And that's overall, I mean, this whole story is an allegorical story to teach you a lesson. It's not like a factual thing. I mean, people do believe it's factual. I don't, but it doesn't change my belief in God or my belief in following God's commandments. I can take it as an allegory and learn a lesson from it.
All right, but let Guru talk.
I mean, no, I understand that. So as you said, if it's allegorical, right? I mean, I can learn from a Harry Potter book. I mean, I can learn from any book.
Go for it. If you
I
can prove to me that Harry Potter gave us the law. No, but hold on. If you could show me how Harry Potter gave us the law of ethical behavior that made the world a better place, I'll follow Harry Potter.
No, sir. I think that's your interpretation of what you think your God has told you.
No, not
Because,
God. I mean, wait.
you know,
So
G side, listen, G side is never okay. Would you guys agree with that?
The what?
G side. I don't want to say
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
word.
yeah. Genocide, genocide. It's fine.
Yeah. Is that ever okay in your book? Ever?
In
In the
certain
Torah?
situations, yes.
Or
Wait, hold on,
are
hold
there
on.
certain circumstances is
So
that's okay?
nowhere in
Yeah.
the Torah. Hold on. So nowhere in the Torah did God command genocide, by the way. I mean, the statement that appears in the Torah, apart from the book of Samuel, which is not in the Torah, by the way, it's Moses specifically giving his own orders. God never just said, wipe everything that moves out. And regarding like with the Amalekites, they were allowed to convert too. But again,
But I'm gonna argue like Karaite. I'm gonna say yes.
The Noah story, he didn't leave 7 people left on the earth.
yeah, but you're
So,
still with this story. Hey, listen, I'm going to share to you the extent of my religiosity.
so it
This is
never
what keeps me
happened.
religious. And it's not anything that you have a hard time believing in. I believe, and it's hard for people to deny that it's essentially the ethical precepts in the Bible that have made this world the paradise that we live in. Okay, I mean, for the most part, it's the individual moral training in that book that we benefit from nowadays more than any other book. Although there's many other books, I don't know, like from Marcus Aurelius, Aristotle, Plato. There's many other works out there that have contributed to the goodness of this planet. Although there's no other specific book other than the Bible that has had more influence in making this world a better place. This makes me believe that at the time that this book was revealed or appeared on the scene, people behaved worse than animals and other gods behaved worse than people. It makes me feel that there had to be some divine source in giving us this ethical standard. The ethical standard, I'm not talking about the narrative. And this makes me think that this being, this God, whoever wrote this, cared enough about me to give me this higher standard to aspire to. And this in return gets me to love that author just as much. That's the extent of my religiosity. I don't care if the Noah story appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh. That doesn't make or break my new religion. What makes or breaks my religion is that if those laws, those 613 commandments, if they make this world worse, right? If it didn't have this trend of actually working, which I think any decent person should pay tribute to that book for what it's done for this planet. If not, they're ungrateful. That's why you should consider coming to the realization that this world needs a good God. Forget about proving that God exists, but just acknowledge that when someone does believe in the ethical God in the Bible that gave it these laws, people who do believe in that live richer, more benevolent existences, better lives. Children who grow up with some fear of God in their life are typically happier, they're more purposeful. I mean, than kids who walk around thinking they're a piece of cosmic garbage, nothing makes sense to them. Are you telling me this is what you're peddling? This is what you want for the children of the world? I don't argue for the, existence of God anymore. I argue for the necessity of God in our lives. Why? Because it's hard to deny that it does make people better. Now, there are a handful of verses that we have to give a response to. Okay, absolutely. However, an atheist has to respond to everything else. Every from music to falling in love to children being born, and you don't have a response for any of that. So if I was a betting man, I'd put my money on what actually does more good on this planet, right? And properly identify as an optimistic agnostic than an atheist.
Is that your assessment?
That's it.
Understood. You did make a lot of presuppositional statements there, which I'm not going to address, but I will say this. In knowing that, let me ask you this: there's 30 million Jews in the world, but you guys have 4 billion followers.
No, 14 million.
I'm sorry?
There's only 14 million Jews.
Well, maybe in Israel, but outside,
No, there's
let's
7
say
million in Israel and 7 million outside. I wish there was 30 million. Okay, but go ahead.
Okay,
We all
let's just
wish.
say, for argument's sake, there's 20 million Jews, right? For argument's
Whatever.
sake, right? So are you saying how is it that there's 20 million Jews, right? And you have all these followers, i.e. Islam and Christianity, right?
Yeah.
That completely cherry picks your entire situation, right? Which they then have implanted for themselves and made their own. Obviously, the Roman Catholics, Rome made up their own version of what they understood of what their book is going to be, right? Jesus Christ is never mentioned in the Old Testament. One man cannot pay for the sin of another man. That's mentioned in Isaiah. Okay, so
Ezekiel. All right, good.
yeah. So here's the thing, man. Like, how is it that you guys have 15 million people within your camp, but you have 4 billion people under your conglomerate, under your umbrella? You know, because without, Islam has nothing to stand on. Christianity is predicated totally on Judaism. So explain to me, man, how is it that these people have been able to take these texts and really conform it and form it to their
Asher,
standing? Would you care to?
can I actually answer this real quick, and then if you don't mind?
Yeah, I don't know what you're going to answer. So let me answer and then you answer. I mean, because you might say
Okay.
sexual and destroy the whole vibe.
No, I'm not going. I promise. But okay.
Okay, I don't know. With such a anyway, fine. Okay, so it just shows that even where the Gentiles get it wrong, that shows how powerful our Torah is, that they're still able to get it right. Just by the little scraps of their appropriation of our prophets and our laws, they've done this. Imagine if Jews would proselytize, right? I mean, that's the main thing. Because of Kabbalah, we've essentially clipped our wings and we're completely insular. The Jewish people, not the Torah, right? I mean, the Torah has influenced the world, but I wish that Jews would have done as much in spreading ethical monotheism than Christians and Muslims have. I mean, I'll call it like it is. Okay, but I mean, I think that just speaks of the greatness of the Torah than in some way, like why we have such few Jews. I mean, we're for sure influential.
Well, you guys, can I just say this, brother Asher? The thing is that these
Wait,
people.
Can you let Neshama respond now? I'm sorry. Yeah, because I told him.
So I believe that the whole purpose of why Hashem allowed these other religions to come about is let's think about this for a minute. What's going to happen when Mashiach comes? The whole world is going to be monotheist and follow Hashem. And before 2,000 years ago, Judaism was like the only monotheistic religion out there. Every other religion was essentially polytheist. You had multiple gods or different tiers of gods, like the Greeks, the Romans, they all had different tiers of gods and whatnot. And in order for everything to necessarily work out, you needed to have the majority of the world become Noachides. So this is almost like a fulfilling of prophecy already, is the actual creation of Christianity and Islam, because their basis is our Torah. So it only takes a couple more steps for them to say, wait a second, let me walk with you, for God is with you, like it says in Zechariah. It only takes a couple more steps. If you had a world full of polytheists, that becomes a lot harder to do. But now you have a world that's essentially monotheist and only becoming more and more monotheist. And it's not just any monotheistic religion. They all happen to be stemming from the same exact book, the Torah, the Tanakh, the holy words of the God of Israel, not any other God. They could have taken any other God, but they didn't. Why was it this specific God, Hashem, that received all, you ask any Muslim, you ask any Christian, do you believe in the God in the Torah? They'll say yes. It's true. So it only takes a couple more steps for them to actually wake up and see,
right.
Oh, wow, it's
right,
the
Guru,
God of Israel.
Here. Yeah, Guru, it's your turn. Go ahead.
So there is something called the doctrine of discovery in Christianity, and it says specifically to go out to the four corners of the world, and specifically to go out there and predicate and promulgate this religion called Christianity. So wherever there was not Christianity, and people brought it forth, well, that's where the bloodshed started, i.e. Africa. I mean, you had, just an example, I don't want to digress. But people don't talk about the genocide that occurred in the Congo and with the Congolese people, with the King of Belgium, and he unalived about 20 million Congolese people between 1875 and like 1905 or something like that for 15 years. And there's pictures of him with armless kids and there's no memorial. There's not a museum to these people that he unalived. These people just flew under the radar. And this is all in the name of, let's just say, Christianity. But what I want to say is...
That's not accurate, by the way. That's not accurate. Only because a Christian does something, did they unalive them in the name of Jesus or in the name of the Bible? You know, I mean, that's unfair. More people have died. What?
Right. It's the doctrine of discovery. It's what I mentioned earlier. So the doctrine of discovery says that wherever there's not Christianity, you go there and you set up shop. You set up camps.
Well, you're thinking of the Great Commission here, okay, of going out and converting people to Judaism, not forcibly massacring people who don't want to become Christian. So I'm not familiar. I mean, what verse? With Matthew 28? I mean, what verse are you looking towards the doctrine of discovery?
The doctrine of discovery is not mentioned in the Bible. The doctrine of discovery is what how Rome was able to. And let me tell you, the amount of blood that Rome and Islam has on their hands, I mean, supersedes. It's in the billions, man.
No,
I'll be honest.
That's inaccurate. That's hugely inaccurate. I mean, in the billions.
It's in the billions, man.
No, that's inaccurate.
I mean, we can say that the deadliest war was Christians versus Christians in the name of Jesus. So.
No, there were Christians who killed Christians. Yes,
that was the deadliest war. I'm sorry, that was the deadliest war. Christians against Christians.
It wasn't the 30 years.
What about unaliving a quarter of the world's population?
I thought it was the 30-year war was the deadliest war. No.
No, Genghis Khan literally took out a quarter of the world's population.
Oh, yeah, but was that a war or was that a genocide?
Yeah, wait, hold on.
It was a war.
So, with the 30 Years' War, were basically Anglicans versus Catholics or something. I mean, it's still, so that's almost a washout of it's Christian versus Christian. But that doesn't compare to in the last 150 years, over 180 million people have been killed under atheistical pursuits. Right, even including Nazism, but in particular Stalin and the People's Revolution of China, Pol Pot. People are still being unalived in North Korea because they thought they could reinvent the wheel ethically and toss out the Bible. I don't think.
No, wait, the Mustache Man was a Christian guy.
Oh, come on. He didn't do anything in the name of Christianity. Let's not lie.
Are we really going to have this for
you
real?
can't just dismiss it like that.
He was not a Christian man.
I felt that guy was a Christian?
He was not a Christian. He was big in astrology.
He used Christian rhetoric and it worked.
Bro, his whole thing was Christianity, bro.
No, it was not.
Christian.
How is national socialism Christianity? What are you talking about?
What do you think is based on?
You combine the German people with Christianity. That's how it works. By defending Christianity, you were defending the Germans.
No. I mean, he didn't mention that. He was big into astrology.
Those people. I said that guy in particular, bro. That guy.
He wasn't he was born a Catholic because he wasn't a Lutheran, but he wasn't religious.
Wow, bro. I'm glad you're
not
say he wasn't religious.
The people who unalived my family or anything,
astrology.
But they did have very anti-church legislation in that time. So to say that they were doing it in the name of Christianity is kind of false.
And by the way, just from the history of the Eastern Front, what they did was they would go through the countries like Poland, Ukraine, Russia. They would put entire villages into churches with the priest and set them on fire. So to claim that this was somehow a Christian thing is just ridiculous.
They also exiled like Catholics and whatnot, like a lot. So there was a lot of persecution.
Germans are not Catholic; they're Lutherans.
Yeah, no, but Hitler was a Catholic.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything in the name of religion. There was nothing to do with religion.
It's a silly argument. It's a silly argument. Okay, I mean, they're
but I never said that he did. All I'm saying is that guy, bro, you see how I simply said that guy was Christian. That's it. You guys went into a frenzy after that.
You can't be a Christian if you're not a religious Christian, okay? You're saying he's an ethnic Christian? Granted. An ethnic Christian, fine.
I mean, what is ethnic? Culturally?
Yeah, but just like Jeffrey Epstein, that was an ethnic Jew. But whatever he does,
Yeah, therefore all the Jews are guilty now, right?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Right, that's the claim, right? If you're gonna pick something based on some random thing, he was a Catholic, therefore it's because of Christianity, then Epstein represents all Jews, right? We can't do stuff like that. That's just horrible thing. It's the worst argument one can make.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, on that note, guys, let's just end. Thank you for stopping by. Follow me, hit me up, and if you're in South Florida, come and we'll drink a beer. Take it easy.